I watch through my car window as they string up gaudy decorations across my front porch, and I can't help but smile at the irony. The banner reads, "Freedom at last," in garish red letters. They have no idea. My name is Leah, and in exactly 47 minutes I'm going to destroy my husband's family. Are you sure about this? Peyton's voice crackles through my phone speaker. She's been my best friend since college, the only one who knows the full truth. Once you do this, there's no going back. They're throwing a divorce party in my house that they think belongs to them. I watch Karen, my soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law, directing caterers like a 4-star general. They've had this coming for 12 years? My phone buzzes with a text from Xander, my lawyer. New owners ready, documents signed, green light whenever you're ready. I take a deep breath, remembering the first time Karen called me a gold digger. It was at my own wedding reception, whispered just loud enough for me to hear as I passed by. At least Bodhi got a pretty one, she'd said to Sloane, her daughter, though God knows what else she brings to the table. If they'd only known then that I'd inherited this house, along with a substantial trust fund, from my grandmother. But I'd kept quiet, hoping to keep the peace, hoping they'd accept me eventually. What a joke that turned out to be. A sleek BMW pulls up to the curb, and Bodhi steps out, looking exactly like what he is, a man who's lived his entire life on other people's money. My money for the past decade, though he never knew it. He straightens his designer jacket and heads toward the house, not even glancing in my direction. "Showtime," I murmur to Peyton. "Meet you inside in 20? "I'll bring popcorn," she says, only half joking. I watch as more guests arrive, all friends of the Stouts, all people who've smiled to my face while whispering behind my back. Through the large bay windows, I can see Karen holding court in the living room, probably sharing her version of why her precious son had to divorce his gold-digging wife. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Tamara, my aunt. "Remember, sweetheart, you don't have to go through with this. We can just serve them papers quietly." But I think about the nights I cried myself to sleep while Bodhi sided with his mother, about the accidental coffee spills on my work designs, about Karen and Sloane's constant hints about my unfortunate inability to have children. "I need to do this," I text back. They need to know exactly who they've been messing with. Through the window, I see Karen raising a champagne glass. Even from here, I can read her lips as she starts her speech. To my son's new beginning. The guests cheer, and my resolve hardens. I check my watch. 30 minutes until Xander arrives with the papers. I step out of my car, smoothing down my black dress. It's designer, Chanel, but not obviously so. Karen will hate that she can't quite place it, can't quite calculate its worth. As I approach the house, Raphael, Bodhi's cousin, spots me first. His eyes widen. Aunt Karen," he calls out. "We have a situation." The party goes quiet as I push open the front door. Karen's face transforms from shock to fury to a sickly, sweet smile in the span of a second. "Leah, dear," she says, voice dripping with false concern. "I don't think you were invited to this celebration." I smile, channeling 12 years of patience into this moment. "Actually, Karen, I was just making sure you're enjoying my house. The acoustics in here are fantastic, aren't they? Perfect for parties. She starts, then laughs nervously. "I think the divorce has confused you, dear. This is the Stout family home." "Is it?" I pull out my phone, checking the time. That's interesting, because in about 20 minutes my lawyer will be here with some paperwork that says differently. And the new owners, of course. The champagne glass slips from Karen's hand, shattering on the hardwood floors I'd had installed 3 years ago. The sound echoes through the sudden silence, and I feel 12 years of suppressed satisfaction bubble up inside me. "What new owners?" Bodhi steps forward, face pale. "What are you talking about?" I lean against the doorframe, my doorframe, and smile. "Why don't we wait for everyone to arrive? I'd hate to have to tell this story twice." The clock on the wall ticks loudly in the silence. 20 minutes. After 12 years of playing the quiet, submissive daughter-in-law, 20 minutes feels like nothing at all. Let the party begin. The tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife as I think back to how this all started. 12 years ago, I was young and stupidly in love with Bodhi, believing his charming smile and promises of forever. We could live with Mum for a while, he'd suggested early in our marriage. Save some money. I remember Peyton's reaction when I told her my plan. We were having coffee at our usual spot, and she nearly choked on her latte. You're going to let them move into your house and pretend it's theirs? She'd stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Leah, that's insane. It's just temporary, I'd assured her. Besides, Bodhi says his mum's having financial troubles. The market crashed and her business is struggling. And you believe that? I hadn't answered, because deep down I already knew. Karen's struggling business somehow afforded her weekly spa treatments and designer handbags. Now, standing in my living room surrounded by hostile faces, I catch snippets of whispered conversations. Can she even afford a lawyer? Sloane stage whispers to her mother. I thought Bodhi froze their joint accounts. Karen pats her daughter's arm. Don't worry, dear. She's bluffing. I slip away from the growing crowd and head upstairs, ostensibly to use the bathroom. Instead, I find myself in what used to be my home office, before Karen suggested converting it into a guest room. Opening the closet, I run my fingers along the wall until I find it. A small envelope tucked behind the baseboards. What are you doing up here? I spin around to find Raphael in the doorway, his expression uncertain. Just reminiscing, I say, sliding the envelope into my purse. Lots of memories in this house. Leah, he steps closer, lowering his voice. Whatever you're planning, please think about what this will do to the family. I laugh, and it sounds bitter even to my own ears. The family? You mean the same family that's celebrating my divorce downstairs? You know how Aunt Karen gets. She's just protective of Bodhi. Protective? I move past him to the hallway. Is that what you call it when she convinced him I was cheating last year? Raphael has the grace to look ashamed. She thought she saw you with someone. My Aunt Tamara, the only real family I have left. I pause at the top of the stairs. But none of you bothered to ask, did you? Downstairs, I hear Bodhi's voice rising in anger. What do you mean? You've been handling her legal matters for years. Xander must have arrived early. Perfect timing. I descend the stairs to find my lawyer standing calmly in the foyer, his briefcase a shield between him and my agitated ex-husband. Ah, Leah, Xander says smoothly. Shall we begin? Begin what? Karen demands, pushing forward. This is a private party and you're both trespassing. Actually, comes a new voice from the doorway. I believe they have every right to be here. Tamara steps into the house, her elegant presence commanding immediate attention. Behind her, Peyton slips in with a barely concealed smirk. Who are you? Karen snaps. I'm the new owner, Tamara says simply. Well, as of... She checks her watch. 15 minutes ago. The colour drains from Karen's face. That's impossible. This house has been in the Stout family for 3 generations, I interrupt. That's funny, because I have documentation showing my grandmother purchased it 25 years ago. Would you like to see the paperwork? Sloane pushes through the crowd. You're lying. Daddy would never have... Sold it? I finish for her. You're right, he didn't. Because it was never his to sell. Xander opens his briefcase, removing a thick folder. I have copies for everyone interested in the property's history, including the transfer of ownership to Leah upon her grandmother's passing 12 years ago. 12 years? Bodhi's voice cracks. But that means, when we moved in, when you suggested we live with your mother to save money? I turn to face him. Yes, Bodhi, you moved your entire family into my house, and I let you, because I thought maybe if I was accommodating enough, generous enough, your family would finally accept me. The room erupts in chaos. Through it all, I hear Karen's shrill voice. She's lying. She has to be lying. But I'm not done. Not even close. Because I just heard something through the open window that makes this moment even sweeter. The sound of moving trucks pulling up outside. Oh, I say, raising my voice above the din. Did I mention the new owners want to take possession immediately? Tamara isn't a fan of waiting. The look of pure horror on Karen's face makes 12 years of patience worth every second. The moving crew files in with practiced efficiency, their presence adding a surreal quality to the chaos. Karen clutches her champagne glass like a weapon, while Sloane frantically dials someone on her phone. Probably their family lawyer. "You can't do this," Bodhi says, his voice trembling. "We have rights as tenants." Xander steps forward, pulling another document from his briefcase. "Actually, you don't. You've never paid rent, never signed a lease, and there's no formal agreement. Legally, you're guests who've overstayed their welcome." I slip away from the commotion, walking through rooms that hold more bitter memories than sweet ones. In the kitchen, I find the drawer where Karen keeps her precious family photos. Right on top is the wedding portrait she had professionally done, just Bodhi and his family. I was conveniently excluded. Looking for something specific? I turn to find Sloane in the doorway, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the frame. "Just remembering," I say, closing the drawer. "Like that time you told everyone at Christmas dinner that I'd tried to seduce your husband." She flushes. "That was a misunderstanding?" I pull out my phone, playing a recording. Her voice fills the kitchen. "Just tell everyone she came onto you, Jack. Mum wants her gone, and this could be our chance." Sloane's face goes white. "You recorded me?" "I recorded everything." I move past her toward the study. "After the third time your mother accidentally ruined my client presentations, I learned to keep receipts. The study door is locked, but I still have my key. Inside, Karen's prized antique desk dominates the room. This is where she held her weekly family meetings I was never invited to attend. As I'm opening drawers, Peyton appears in the doorway. "The movers want to know which furniture stays and which goes." "Everything with a blue sticker is mine," I say, finally finding what I'm looking for, a thick manila envelope hidden in the false bottom of the top drawer. "The rest belongs to the Stouts. They have 24 hours to remove it." 24 hours? Karen's voice screeches from behind Peyton. "You can't just throw us out on the street, like you tried to do to me last month." I turn, holding up the envelope. "When you forged my signature on divorce papers and tried to force me out before the proceedings were final." Karen's face goes from red to purple. "Those papers were perfectly legal." "They were fraudulent," Xander says, appearing beside her. "And we have proof. Would you like to discuss potential criminal charges now, or should we handle that separately?" From downstairs comes the sound of breaking glass, followed by shouting. We rush to the landing to find Bodhi facing off with one of the movers, a shattered vase between them. "That's a family heirloom," he yells. "You can't just—" "It's my grandmother's Waterford," I interrupt. "The one Karen claimed was a Stout family piece, when she allocated it to her room." The party guests are starting to leave, slipping out with embarrassed murmurs and averted eyes. Only Raphael remains, looking lost among the moving boxes. "I found this," he says quietly, holding out a photo album. "It's from your first year here." I take it, flipping through pages of happier times. Before Karen convinced Bodhi I was beneath their social standing. Before Sloane started her whisper campaign about my suspicious inability to conceive. "I should have said something," Raphael continues. "When they started, when I knew they were systematically trying to destroy my marriage and self-worth." I close the album. "Yes, you should have." A loud crash from upstairs makes everyone jump. We rush up to find Sloane in my old office, frantically searching through drawers. "Looking for this?" I hold up the envelope from earlier. "Your mother's letter to Bodhi? The one where she outlines her entire plan to save him from his unfortunate marriage by introducing him to her friend's daughter?" Sloane freezes. Bodhi steps forward. "What letter?" "The one explaining how I was just a placeholder until someone more suitable came along." I hand him the envelope, dated 3 months after our wedding. He opens it with shaking hands, his face growing paler as he reads. Karen appears in the doorway, for once speechless. "The movers will work around you," I say, turning to leave. "But everything needs to be out by this time tomorrow. Anything left behind will be considered abandoned property." "Leah," Bodhi calls after me, his voice breaking. "I didn't know about the letter, about any of it." I pause at the top of the stairs, thinking of all the times he chose not to know, chose not to see. "That's the problem, Bodhi. You never wanted to know." The sound of the movers continues below, dismantling the carefully constructed facade of the past 12 years. And for the first time since this all began, I feel something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not even anger. I feel free. The next few hours pass in a blur of moving boxes and shattered illusions. I sit on the front porch swing, the one Bodhi claimed his grandfather built, but I have the receipt from the craftsman who actually made it, watching the Stout's world implode. "We need to talk about the shop," Xander says, settling beside me with a manila folder. "Not yet," I reply, watching Karen direct the movers with increasingly desperate commands. "Let them process this first. Time isn't on our side here," he insists. "The mortgage." "What mortgage?" Sloane appears, her mascara smeared. "What are you talking about?" I share a look with Xander before standing. Maybe we should discuss this inside. The living room is half empty now, moving boxes stacked where family photos once hung. Karen is there, clutching a crystal decanter like it might save her. "The boutique," I say simply. "Your mother's pride and joy." Karen's grip on the decanter tightens. "What about my shop? Remember 3 years ago when you needed an emergency loan?" I pull out my phone, scrolling through emails. "The bank required a co-signer?" The colour drains from her face. "You wouldn't." "I already have." I nod to Xander, who produces more paperwork. "When you forged my signature on those divorce papers, you violated the terms of the loan agreement. The bank is calling it in." "But that's impossible!" Karen's voice rises to a shriek. "I never asked you to co-sign anything." "No," Bodhi says quietly from the doorway. "You asked me, and I forged Leah's signature because you said it was just a formality, that you'd have the money in a month." The decanter slips from Karen's hands, joining the growing collection of broken crystal on the floor. "Bodhi," she whispers, "how could you? How could I?" He laughs, harsh and hollow. "I've been doing things like that for years, Mother. Covering your spending, hiding your schemes. I just never thought..." He looks at me. "I never thought it would cost me everything." Peyton appears with fresh coffee, handing me a cup. "The movers found something interesting in the attic," she says. "Looks like financial records." "Those are private." Karen lunges for the box Peyton indicates, but Xander steps in smoothly. "Actually, as co-signer on the business loan, Leah has every right to review these documents." I flip through the files, each page revealing new layers of deception. "You've been embezzling from your own business," I say, looking up at Karen. "Using my credit as guarantee for loans you never intended to repay." "It wasn't like that," she protests weakly. "Then what was it like?" I spread the papers on the half-packed dining room table. "Because it looks like you've been running a Ponzi scheme with your investors' money. Does the name Margaret ring a bell? The widow you convinced to put her life savings into your expansion project?" Sloane sinks into a chair, her perfect facade crumbling. "Mother, you promised that money went to the new location." "It did," Karen insists. "Most of it, anyway. The rest was just borrowed." "For what?" Bodhi demands. "The country club membership? The spa weekends? The designer wardrobe you said came from your business profits?" A heavy silence falls, broken only by the sound of movers in other rooms. "I can still fix this," Karen says, but her voice has lost its usual authority. "I just need time." "Time's up," Xander interrupts. "The bank is auditing the books first thing Monday morning." Raphael, who's been quietly watching from the corner, finally speaks. "What happens now?" "Now," I say, gathering the documents. "You all have 18 hours to remove your belongings from my house. After that, Karen needs to contact her own lawyer about the fraud charges she's facing." "You're bluffing," Sloane says, but there's no conviction in her voice. "Am I?" I hand her a copy of the loan documents. "Check the signature dates against your mother's bank records. Everything you need to know is right there." "You'll destroy this family," Karen whispers. "No, Karen, you did that yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth." Bodhi steps forward, his face ashen. "Leah, please, whatever Mum did, whatever I did, there has to be another way." For a moment, looking at him, I feel a flicker of the love we once shared. But then I remember all the times he stood silent while his family tore me down, all the lies he helped maintain. "There was another way," I say quietly. "For 12 years, There were other ways. You all just chose not to take them. The grandfather clock, my grandfather clock, chimes in the hall, marking another hour gone. Outside, the moving trucks continue their work, dismantling the careful illusion the Stouts built their lives around. And in the growing shadows of evening, I watch as karma finally comes to collect its due. Night falls, but nobody sleeps. The movers have gone, leaving behind half-empty rooms and shattered pretenses. Karen paces the kitchen, making frantic phone calls to lawyers who won't answer at this hour. Sloane sits on the stairs, scrolling through her phone, probably searching for some legal loophole to save them. Your mother's investment group is already responding, Peyton says, showing me her tablet. Someone leaked the audit news. That wasn't me, I say, though I know exactly who did. Margaret, the widow Karen swindled, has friends on the board. Bodhi emerges from his study, holding a stack of papers. I found more, he says, voice hollow. Mum's been forging documents for years, not just the loan stuff. I know. I take the papers, adding them to Xander's growing file. She forged my signature on insurance policies, investment accounts, even tried to refinance the house last year. Why didn't you say something sooner? Would you have believed me? He doesn't answer, which is an answer in itself. A crash from upstairs makes us all jump. We rush up to find Karen in my old office, frantically shredding documents. That's enough, Xander says sharply, unplugging the shredder. Those are evidence. Evidence of what? Karen's voice is shrill. A daughter-in-law's vindictive lies. I built this family's reputation. I protected us from people like her. People like me. I step forward. You mean people who actually earned their money, who didn't have to steal from grieving widows to maintain their lifestyle? I did not steal. Margaret sends her regards, I cut in. She's very interested in the audit. So are the other investors. Karen lunges for the papers, but Xander is faster. Mrs. Stout, I strongly advise you to stop. You're only making things worse. Worse? She laughs, high and brittle. My son's gold-digging wife just destroyed everything we've built, and you think it can get worse? Actually, it can. I pull out my phone, showing her the screen. Your investors are calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. They've seen the preliminary numbers. The fight drains from her face. How? Did I mention Margaret's daughter works for the SEC? Sloane appears in the doorway, her own phone clutched tight. Mother, the country club just called. They're suspending our membership pending investigation. The business accounts are frozen too, Bodhi adds quietly. I just checked. Karen sinks into the desk chair, my desk chair, her carefully maintained facade crumbling. You don't understand, she whispers. After Bodhi's father left, I had to maintain appearances. I had to protect our social standing. By stealing, I ask? By destroying anyone who threatened your perfect image? I did what I had to do, including trying to break up my marriage, making me believe I wasn't good enough for your son. You weren't. She stands again, mask slipping completely. You were nothing. A nobody who got lucky with an inheritance. I had to protect Bodhi from... From what? Bodhi interrupts. From someone who actually loved me? Who put up with years of abuse because she thought I was worth it? The silence that follows is deafening. The police will be here in the morning, Xander says into the quiet. I suggest you use this time to pack and contact your lawyer. Police? Sloane's voice shakes. But we're the victims here. She tricked us. No. Raphael speaks up from the hallway. We tricked ourselves. We saw what Aunt Karen was doing to Leah for years. We just didn't want to admit it. Karen turns to Bodhi, reaching for him. Darling, you can't let this happen. Everything I did for you. But Bodhi steps back. No, Mother, you did it for yourself, and now we're all paying for it. Dawn is breaking when Tamara arrives with coffee and pastries. She surveys the chaos with calm eyes. The moving company will return at 9, she says. Everything needs to be out by then. You can't just throw us out, Sloane protests weakly. Actually, we can. Tamara's voice is steel wrapped in silk. And given what we've discovered about your mother's financial dealings, I'd focus less on where you're going and more on finding good criminal defense lawyers. I watch as reality finally settles over the Stouts. Their carefully constructed world of privilege and pretense is collapsing, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Leah, Bodhi tries one last time. Please, we can work something out. But I think of 12 years of subtle cruelty, of calculated humiliation, of a family that saw me as nothing but a threat to their precious status. No, I say quietly. We really can't. The sun rises over my house, truly mine now, as the Stouts begin their exodus, leaving behind broken crystal, shattered illusions, and the weight of 12 years of lies. The morning brings chaos spilling onto the front lawn. Neighbours peek through curtains as the Stouts' carefully curated life is dismantled piece by piece. Karen stands by her Mercedes, barking orders at the movers, while simultaneously arguing with someone on her phone. The investors want an emergency meeting today, Xander tells me, watching the scene unfold. They're not waiting until Monday. A sleek black SUV pulls up, and Margaret steps out, the widow Karen swindled. She's elegant in her 60s, radiating quiet fury as she approaches. "Karen," she calls out, "I believe we need to talk." Karen spins around, phone dropping from her hand. "Margaret, I can explain everything." "Explain what? How you used my husband's death benefits to fund your daughter's wedding, or how you forged my signature on those investment documents." Sloane freezes halfway down the front steps, clutching a box of designer shoes. "You did what?" "It wasn't like that," Karen stammers. "The money was invested." "In your personal accounts?" Margaret finishes. "My daughter traced every transfer. Would you like to see the records?" More cars are arriving now. Other investors, board members, people Karen has been deceiving for years. The quiet suburban street transforms into a stage for public humiliation. "This is all your fault!" Karen whirls on me, mascara streaking down her face. "You vindictive little—" "That's enough." Bodhi steps between us, surprising everyone. "Stop blaming Leah for your crimes, Mother." "Crimes?" Karen laughs hysterically. "I was protecting our family, our reputation." "By stealing from your friends?" Margaret asks quietly. "By destroying your son's marriage?" "She was never good enough for him. She had more money than all of us," Bodhi interrupts, "and never once lorded it over anyone. Unlike you, Mother." Sloane drops her box, shoes scattering across the lawn. "What do you mean, more money?" "The trust fund," Raphael says, emerging from the house. "I found the paperwork in Karen's study. Leah's grandmother left her millions, not just the house. She could have bought and sold us 10 times over." The revelation sends ripples through the gathering crowd. Karen sways on her feet, reaching for her car to steady herself. "That's impossible," she whispers. I checked. Under the wrong name," I say. "My grandmother's marriage name, not her family name. You were so convinced I was a gold digger, you never bothered to look deeper." A police cruiser pulls up, followed by 2 serious-looking men in suits. "Mrs. Stout," one calls out. "I'm Detective Morris. We need to ask you some questions about certain financial irregularities." "You can't prove anything," Karen says, but her voice trembles. "Actually," Margaret steps forward, "we can prove everything. Your son's been quite helpful this morning, turning over documents." All eyes turn to Bodhi, who stands pale but resolute. "I'm done covering up your lies, Mother. I'm done losing everything that matters because of your schemes." "Bodhi!" Karen reaches for him, but he steps back. "I'm your mother, and I'm your son, not your accomplice. Not anymore." The detective moves forward with handcuffs as Karen's carefully constructed world crumbles completely. Sloane bursts into tears, mascara joining her mother's in black streaks. "What about the shop?" she sobs. "Our accounts? Our reputation?" "All frozen," Xander says clinically. "Pending investigation." As Karen is led to the police car, she makes one last desperate play. "I'll tell everyone," she shrieks, "about how you trapped my son, how you manipulated us all." I step forward, voice carrying across the lawn. "Tell them what, Karen? That I let you live in my house for 12 years? That I covered your bounce checks? That I kept quiet while you stole from your friends and tried to destroy my marriage?" The gathered crowd murmurs, and I see realization dawn in their eyes. These people, Karen's precious social circle, are finally seeing the truth. The country club will hear about this. It's her last desperate shot. They already have, Margaret says coldly. The board met this morning. Your membership is permanently revoked. As the police car pulls away, Bodhi turns to me. I know it doesn't make up for anything, but I'm sorry. For everything. You're right, I say quietly. It doesn't make up for anything. The movers continue their work as the crowd slowly disperses. Sloane sits on the front steps, surrounded by scattered designer shoes, looking lost. Raphael helps the movers in silence, while Bodhi stands in the driveway, watching his family's reputation dissolve in the morning sun. Peyton appears at my side. You okay? I watch as 12 years of lies and manipulation finally face the light of day. I don't know, I answer honestly, but I think I will be. The morning wears on, and with each box removed, each piece of furniture loaded into trucks, I feel the weight of the past growing lighter. But as I catch Bodhi's broken expression, I realise that victory doesn't always taste as sweet as we expect. By late afternoon, the house is almost empty. Bodhi finds me in the kitchen, where I'm watching the last of Karen's precious crystal being packed away. Can we talk? He asks, looking more dishevelled than I've ever seen him. Please. I nod, following him to the back porch, the same porch where he proposed 12 years ago. The swing still creaks the same way. I found this, he says, pulling out a worn envelope. It's from our first anniversary. Inside is a card I'd written him, full of hope and promises. Before Karen's manipulation took root, before everything soured. I was happy then, he says quietly. We were happy. Until your mother convinced you I wasn't good enough. I should have stood up to her. He runs a hand through his hair. Should have seen what she was doing to you, to us. A commotion from the front yard interrupts us. Sloane's voice rises in hysteria. What do you mean my cards are declined? We round the house to find her arguing with the moving company supervisor. Listen, lady, he says, we need payment now, or these trucks aren't moving. This is ridiculous. Sloane pulls out another credit card. Try this one. All your accounts are frozen, Xander reminds her, appearing with another stack of documents. That includes credit cards. Then how are we supposed to move our things? She demands. They're not all your things, I say quietly. The artwork in the dining room? Those are my grandmother's pieces. The antique desk Karen claimed was a family heirloom? I have the purchase receipt. Sloane's face crumples. Where are we supposed to go? Raphael offered to help, Bodhi tells her. He has space in his guest house. A guest house? She laughs bitterly. We had a mansion this morning. No, I correct her. You had my house this morning. There's a difference. Peyton approaches with her tablet. You might want to see this. The local news website is already running the story. Prominent socialite arrested for investment fraud? Below are photos of Karen being led to the police car, along with details about the scheme she'd been running through her boutique. Mother's going to jail, isn't she? Sloane whispers. The evidence is pretty clear, Xander says. The SEC doesn't mess around with fraud cases. Bodhi sinks onto the front steps. All those times she said she needed my signature for business expenses. I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't want to see it. None of us did, Raphael adds, carrying out another box. We all bought into Aunt Karen's perfect world. Speak for yourself, Peyton mutters. The moving supervisor clears his throat. About the payment. I pull out my credit card. I'll cover it. Leah, no, Bodhi protests. You don't have to. Actually, I do. I hand over my card. Because, unlike your mother, I know the difference between revenge and cruelty. As the movers resume their work, Tamara arrives with her interior designer. They walk through the house, discussing renovations, while the Stouts watch their life being packed into trucks. I found this, Raphael says, holding out a photo album. It's from before. Everything. The photos show happier times, holidays, dinners, moments when the facade of family felt real, before Karen's machinations poisoned everything. Keep it, I tell him. Someone should remember the good parts. Sloane approaches hesitantly. I'm sorry. About the infertility rumours. About everything. Are you sorry it happened or sorry you got caught? She doesn't answer, which tells me everything I need to know. The sun is setting when the last truck is loaded. Bodhi stands in the driveway, keys in hand. "I really loved you," he says softly, "before I let Mum convince me that status mattered more than happiness." "I know," I reply. "That's what makes it all worse." He nods, understanding finally reflecting in his eyes. "For what it's worth, you were always too good for us, not the other way around." As the trucks pull away, carrying the remnants of the stout's carefully constructed life, I feel no triumph, just a quiet certainty that karma, when it comes, doesn't always bring satisfaction. Sometimes it just brings truth. Peyton touches my arm. "You okay?" "Ask me tomorrow," I say, watching Bodhi's car disappear around the corner. Inside, the house feels different, emptier, but somehow lighter. The weight of 12 years of lies and pretense is gone, leaving only echoes and possibilities. Tamara finds me in the kitchen, where Karen's crystal cabinet stands empty. "Ready to make this place yours again?" I look around at the space that was mine all along, thinking of all the changes to come. "Yes," I say finally. "I think I am." But as night falls and silence settles over the empty rooms, I wonder if winning feels this hollow for everyone, or if some victories are meant to taste like goodbye. The morning newspaper lands on my doorstep with a dull thud. The headline reads, "Local boutique owner pleads guilty to investment fraud." Below is Karen's mugshot, her perfect makeup and unpracticed smile replaced by stark reality. My phone buzzes with a text from Raphael. "Aunt Karen took a plea deal. 5 years. Sloane's not handling it well." "Are any of them?" I type back. "No, but maybe that's not a bad thing." I'm sipping coffee on the porch when a familiar car pulls up. Margaret steps out carrying a small box. "I thought you might want these back," she says, setting it down. Inside are photos and documents, evidence of Karen's schemes that the prosecutors no longer need. "How are the other investors?" I ask. "Recovering. The forensic accountants found most of the money. Karen wasn't as clever as she thought." Margaret sits beside me. "Though I suspect you knew that all along." I had my suspicions, but proving it took patience and courage. She smiles sadly. "My late husband always said karma works on its own schedule." A moving truck appears at the end of the street, not taking things away this time, but bringing them back. My grandmother's antique furniture, stored safely all these years, finally returning home. Peyton arrives as the movers unload. "Did you see the country club newsletter? They're doing damage control, trying to distance themselves from the whole scandal." "The mighty stouts," I muse. "Not so mighty anymore." "Speaking of which," Peyton nods toward an approaching figure. It's Bodhi, looking uncomfortable in casual clothes instead of his usual designer suits. "Can we talk?" he asks. Inside, the house is transforming. Gone are Karen's oppressive dark curtains and stuffy furniture arrangements. Light streams through clean windows, touching spaces that haven't seen sun in years. "I'm selling the condo," Bodhi says, following me to the kitchen. "Moving out of state, actually. Taking a job offer in Seattle. Running away. Starting over." He traces a finger along the counter. "Something I should have done years ago." "And Sloane?" "Living with Raphael for now. She's struggling. Reality isn't what she thought it was." I pour him coffee out of habit, then catch myself. Some patterns die hard. "I found this," he says, pulling out an old envelope. "From our first date. You wrote down all your dreams on a napkin." I remember that night. How young we were, how full of possibilities. Before Karen's poison, before status and appearances became everything. "You achieved them all," he continues. "The design firm, the charity work, even that community art program you wanted to start, while I just existed in my mother's shadow." "You chose that shadow," I remind him. "I know. That's why I'm leaving. I need to find out who I am without it." The doorbell rings. It's Tamara with paint samples and renovation plans. Real changes for a fresh start. "I should go," Bodhi says, standing. "Belaya, thank you." "For what?" "For showing me the truth, even if I didn't want to see it." After he leaves, Peyton helps me sort through boxes, separating past from present. We find old Christmas cards, wedding photos, memories of a family that never really existed except in Karen's carefully crafted illusion. Raphael says Karen's already planning her comeback, Peyton mentions, even from jail. Some people never learn, and some people teach the best lessons. She holds up a magazine, the latest issue of Design Weekly, featuring my firm's newest project. Speaking of which, the article mentions the scandal, but focuses more on my work, my vision. No longer Bodie Stout's wife, but Leah, the designer who turned adversity into art. As evening approaches, Margaret and Tamara help me arrange my grandmother's furniture, pieces that tell my real family story. The house feels different now, lighter somehow, like it can breathe again. You know, Tamara says, adjusting a painting, revenge wasn't really your goal, was it? No, I admit. I just wanted the truth to come out. Everything else was Karma's doing. A car slows down outside, Karen's old friends, probably hoping to glimpse some drama. But all they see is a home being restored, a life being reclaimed. My phone buzzes one last time. A message from Raphael. Sloane asked about you today. Actually said she understands now. Maybe that's a start. I stand in my doorway, watching the sunset paint my porch in shades of possibility. The revenge I thought I wanted has transformed into something else. Liberation. Not just from the Stouts, but from the weight of pretense, from the exhaustion of being less than I am. The house creaks softly, settling into its new reality. And finally, so do I.
My life is pretty straightforward. I'm all about fitness, health, and apparently, drama. At 26, I'm juggling my career as a fitness trainer and managing my health blog. That's where I met Mark at the sports center. What began as a casual connection quickly blossomed into something special. He has this vibe that's hard to ignore, and before we knew it, we were caught up in what you might call whirlwind romance. Let me set the scene for you. It was a scorching summer day, and I was about to meet Mark's family for the first time. I felt a mix of nerves and excitement, dressed in a simple knee-length dress with short sleeves. Nothing flashy, but apparently enough to stir the pot. Mark had warned me that his family was a bit traditional and protective. He mentioned his mom, Linda, in a tone that left me puzzled. She has strong opinions, but don't take it to heart, he said, oblivious to the fact that those were more like red flags than reassurances. As we stepped into their family home, Mark's younger brother, Alex, greeted us with a hearty smile. Then came Linda. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. It felt like the temperature dropped a few degrees. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, lingering on my arms. "Is this how you dress to meet your future mother-in-law?" she asked, her voice icy. A bit bold, don't you think? I was taken aback, scrambling for the right words. Mark squeezed my hand, a silent show of support. "Well, it's summer, and it's pretty hot outside. I thought this outfit was decent and comfortable," I managed to say. "Comfortable or not, it's about first impressions," Linda shot back. I would have expected something more appropriate. Mark jumped in to smooth things over. "Mom, it's really hot today. Erica looks fine. Let's not start off on the wrong foot." But Linda wouldn't let it go. "I'm just saying, Mark, it's about respect. But fine, let's have dinner." Dinner turned into a tense affair, the conversations around me feeling superficial while Linda's earlier remarks loomed overhead like a dark cloud. Alex tried to lighten the mood with jokes and stories, and I was grateful for his effort. Mark kept giving me reassuring looks, but I could sense the damage was done. After dinner, while I was helping with the dishes, Linda cornered me in the kitchen. "Listen, dear, I'm just looking out for my son. He's a good boy, and I don't want him to make a mistake." I was floored. "A mistake? Linda, I love Mark. I'm not here to play games. I don't know what gave you a bad impression, but that's not me." She shook her head. "We'll see. Time tells all truths." The ride home was quiet, and Mark apologized for his mom's behavior, though I could tell he was upset too. "She can be protective, but this is too much." I sighed and leaned back in the seat. "It's okay, Mark, but if this is how it's going to be, we have a rocky road ahead." As wedding planning began in earnest, Mark and I were all in, picking out decorations, tasting cakes, and finding the perfect attire. I fell in love with a stunning dress, sleek and just a bit revealing, but nothing outrageous, or so I thought until Linda caught a glimpse. "You plan on wearing that in front of the whole family?" she blurted out. "It looks like you're aiming for a beach party rather than a wedding." I tried to laugh it off. "It's just modern, Linda." Plus, it'll be a warm day, and I want to feel comfortable. Mark squeezed my hand, a signal to avoid a battle we couldn't win, but Linda's frown said it all. She muttered something about tradition and decency as she walked off. I thought if a dress could stir the pot, what lay ahead? After that initial clash with Linda, things settled into a tense routine. I threw myself into work and my blog, which became my sanctuary, my space where I felt in control and could share my passion for fitness and health. It never crossed my mind that this very passion would stir the pot once again. One evening, Mark and I were lounging on the couch during a rare moment of downtime when he suddenly frowned, scrolling through his phone. "Babe, we need to talk," he said, his tone serious. I sat up, alarmed. "What's up?" He handed me his phone, revealing my Instagram profile. In the comments of my latest post were a mix of supportive and flirty messages, totally normal, in my opinion. Okay, I was confused. It's just Instagram, Mark. People comment, that's how it works. Yeah, but my mom is making a big deal out of it, he replied, frustration creeping into his voice. She's convinced you're inviting attention. Anger surged through me. Are you kidding me? It's Instagram, for crying out loud. I snatched the phone from him and scrolled through the comments. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, yet Linda had twisted it into something sordid. So what am I supposed to do? Police who comments on my posts? I shot back. No, of course not, but maybe we could limit who can comment until this blows over. His suggestion was well-meaning but infuriating. So, I have to censor my account because your mom has a twisted view of me. Hell no, that's not happening. Fast forward through the Instagram saga where Linda twisted my every move into scandal. Things got stickier when Alex, bless him, began giving me rides home from work since his office was just a block from the gym. It was innocent convenience, but not in Linda's eyes. During a family dinner, with tension thick in the air, she leaned in with her usual insinuations. Nice of Alex to play chauffeur, isn't it? Mark's jaw tensed, and I noticed Alex stiffen beside him. Mom, what are you implying? Mark's voice had that warning edge, but Linda was on a roll. Oh, nothing, just making conversation, she replied, feigning innocence while her eyes darted between me and Alex. The atmosphere was like a lit fuse. Stop it, Mom. You're out of line. Alex snapped, clearly at his limit. The argument escalated from there, with Mark caught in the middle, torn between his brother and his mother's accusations. The drive home was silent, the weight of the accusations heavy in the air. I couldn't believe Linda would stoop so low, using Alex's kindness as a weapon against me. The entire mess with Linda reached a boiling point, and I could only wonder how we would navigate the storm ahead. I never imagined it would come to this, but after Linda's latest stunt, accusing me of cheating because Alex offered me a few rides home, I hit my breaking point. I told Mark outright, your mom is not welcome in our house anymore. I can't take this anymore. She's crossed too many lines. You think I had declared war? Linda erupted when she heard about the ban, but honestly, I was beyond caring. Her constant digs and accusations were one thing, but what happened next was a real gut punch. A couple of months later, I found out I was pregnant. What should have been a joyous revelation turned to chaos when Linda decided to spin a new tale. She told Mark, "How do you know that child is yours? With all those men at her gym, who knows?" Hearing that venom come from his own mother felt like a knife in my gut. I could see the doubt creep into Mark's eyes, a look that shattered the solid bond we once shared. One night, after overhearing yet another of their phone calls, I confronted Mark. So what? You think I'm cheating? That this baby isn't yours? My voice was sharp, tinged with hurt and anger. Mark looked torn, a shadow of himself. I don't know what to think anymore, Erica. My mom has all these ideas. And you're going to take her word over mine? Over everything we've built together? I interrupted, disbelief coloring my tone. He didn't answer, shuffling his feet and avoiding my gaze. That silence spoke volumes more than any argument could. Things grew colder between us after that. Conversations became clipped and filled with tension. It was like living with a stranger. The joy of our upcoming baby was overshadowed by this cloud of suspicion and doubt. When our baby boy finally arrived, with his fair hair and bright blue eyes, I thought maybe things would start to look up. But I couldn't have been more wrong. As he grew, his features became even more pronounced, making him the spitting image of a golden-haired angel. The problem? Mark, my husband, was as brunette and dark-eyed as they come, giving Linda even more ammunition for her relentless accusations. In a last-ditch effort to quell the ridiculousness, I dug up old childhood photos to show both Linda and Mark. "Look," I said, pointing to a picture of me at 5, blonde and blue-eyed just like our son. "It's genetics, Linda. Can't you see the resemblance?" But Linda merely sniffed, unimpressed, her eyes narrowing. "Convenient, isn't it, that your genes decided to pop up now? And Alex being blonde doesn't help your case." Mark stood there, caught in the middle, his face a mix of confusion and hurt. The tension was unbearable. Things reached a breaking point at our son's first birthday party. With all the guests cooing over the baby, Linda couldn't help but make a scene. "This child looks nothing like my son. Everyone can see it. We need a DNA test to prove who the father really is," she announced loudly, making everyone uncomfortable. I was livid, my face burning with embarrassment and anger. "Are you out of your mind, Linda? Accusing me in front of everyone? No way am I doing some tests just because your paranoia has gone off the rails." My voice dripped with indignation. It was humiliating to be accused like that, especially in front of friends and family. But then Mark intervened, just not in the way I had hoped. "Actually, we're doing it," he said, his voice cold, a hardness in his eyes that I had never seen before. "If you've got nothing to hide, then there's no issue. We'll do the test, or we're done. I can't be married to someone I don't trust." I was floored. "Are you serious? You're choosing your mom's crazy accusations over me, over your son?" He didn't budge, not even flinching at my words. "It's not just my mom. There's too much doubt, too much talk. The test will clear things up one way or another, and until then." My heart was in my throat, dreading his next words. "Pack your bags. Stay somewhere else. I can't look at you. Not now, not with these doubts." His words cut through me, leaving a chilling emptiness in their wake. So there I was, packing my things in a rage, my hands shaking with a mix of fury and hurt. Our baby boy, blissfully unaware, watched with wide, innocent eyes as his world, and mine, crumbled. I left, heading to the only place I could think of, my mom's. She was waiting with open arms. When I arrived at my mom's house, I barely made it through the door before I broke down. "He kicked us out, Mom, over some DNA tests. Linda convinced him we need it." My mother's fury flared instantly. "I'll go over there and give Mark a piece of my mind, over my dead body." But I stopped her. "No, it's not worth it. Not right now." That night, I replayed every moment in my mind, trying to pinpoint where it all went wrong. How had we gone from being so in love to questioning our baby's paternity, and Alex caught up in this mess for no reason other than Linda's spite? The fallout from my son's first birthday party had been swift. News of Linda's accusations spread like wildfire, and it felt as if the entire city was whispering behind my back before the party favors were even picked up. My friends, my mom's friends, even the neighbors who had watched me grow up, they were all talking. It felt like I was living in a nightmare. Fed up and desperate to clear my name, I decided to go through with the DNA test. I picked up the phone and called Mark, my voice steady despite my trembling hands. "I'll do the test." I cut straight to the chase. There was a pause on the other end, then Mark replied, his voice unnervingly calm. "I knew you'd come around. It's for the best." When I arrived at the clinic, I was a bundle of nerves. Mark looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, and to my surprise, so was Alex. "Why is he here?" I asked, my voice edged with irritation as I nodded toward my brother. Mark didn't meet my gaze. "There's been talk that you and Alex, he's getting tested too." My blood boiled at the implication. "You think I'd cheat on you with your brother? That's how little you trust me." Before Mark could respond, the specialist called us in, momentarily breaking the tension. Inside, the specialist laid it out clearly. Determining paternity could get complicated when potential fathers were siblings. "We'll need additional samples from everyone involved, including you, Erica, to ensure accuracy." So we each gave our samples, lost in our thoughts. Alex looked mortified. Mark appeared conflicted. And me, I was just angry. Angry that it had come to this, angry at Linda, and angry at Mark for allowing his mother's paranoia to escalate so far. Once the tests were done, we were told it would be a couple of weeks before we got the results. Those weeks dragged on, each day a torturous reminder of the uncertainty looming over our future. I didn't sit idle, though. I made a few calls and spoke to a man who promised he could help with a delicate matter. I didn't know if it would lead anywhere, but I had to try something. Finally, the day arrived for the grand reveal. The tension in Linda's living room felt almost tangible, wrapping its icy fingers around my heart. My son clutched my hand, sensing the storm brewing but oblivious to its cause. Ever the self-appointed master of ceremonies, Linda dramatically sliced open the envelope containing the DNA test results, her anticipation palpable as she hoped for a scandal that would validate her accusations. But the moment she peeked inside, her expression faltered and disappointment washed over her. "The father is Mark," she announced, her voice losing its usual sharpness. Mark, who had been a bundle of nerves, visibly relaxed, a smug smile spreading across his face as he turned to me. "Well, there you have it. No harm done, right? You can come back home now." His words ignited a fierce mix of disbelief and anger within me, and I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. "Come back after all this? You must be joking." He blinked, taken aback by my reaction. "But you're innocent, Erica. Isn't that what you wanted?" That's when I played my hand, pulling out the divorce papers I had kept hidden away. The silence that followed was deafening as I laid them on the table. Mark's face went from confident to pale, sheer panic taking over. "What's this? Why divorce papers?" I replied, the words tasting like freedom, and then I produced the photos, undeniable proof of Mark's infidelity captured in vivid detail by the private detective I had secretly hired. Watching him transform from confident to broken was almost pitiful. He started to babble apologies, his earlier bravado crumbling away. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please let's talk about this." "Talk?" I scoffed, my voice cold. "You dragged my name through the mud and let your mother accuse me of the worst. All the while, you were the one cheating. There's nothing to talk about." Linda, who had been relishing the drama, now tried to intervene, her earlier eagerness replaced by desperation. "Now, dear, let's all calm down. We can fix this." "Fix this?" I cut her off sharply. "Your son is a cheat, and you're no better for stirring this trouble based on lies." After I laid out the proof of Mark's betrayal for all to see, the room became a battleground of broken bonds and shattered illusions. Linda couldn't tear her eyes away from the photos spread across the coffee table, each one a testament to betrayal. "I'm not just walking away, Mark. I will be demanding alimony and compensation for this treachery," I declared, my voice steady yet seething with anger. Mark's face drained of color, his earlier bravado evaporating into thin air. "You can't be serious," he stammered, looking from the photos to his mother, searching for some kind of refuge. Linda, ever the matriarch, attempted to regain control. "Oh please, she was never right for you. She would have cheated on you sooner or later. You're better off without her." That's when Alex, who had been simmering quietly with rage, exploded. "Enough." His voice echoed off the walls. "I'm done with all of this, with both of you." He pointed at his mother and brother. "After everything you put her through based on nothing but your twisted suspicions, I'm out." Linda turned to him, her face a mask of shock and desperation. "Alex, please don't say that. I was just trying to protect our family." "Protect?" he scoffed, his scorn palpable. "Is that what you call this? Destroying relationships and spreading lies? I can't be part of this family if this is what it stands for. I'm moving to another city and starting fresh, away from all this madness." Later, as I relayed the events to my mom, her words provided a cold comfort. That's the price of Linda's folly. Her arrogance and stupidity cost her her own sons. Maybe now she'll see the harm she's caused. The fallout was immediate and absolute. Alex followed through on his promise, moving away and cutting ties. Mark was left to face the consequences of his actions, with his mother's manipulations creating a chasm too wide to bridge between them. Life after the dust settled was different, not easier, but clearer, like I was seeing everything for the first time again. My mom and I had many long talks about it, sitting on her old comfy sofa with cups of tea that always seemed to go cold before we finished. "Mom," I started one evening, the sky outside painted with calm I didn't quite feel inside. "Do you think I made the right choice with everything? The divorce? Standing up to Linda and Mark like that?" My mom set her cup down, looking at me with those wise eyes that had seen more of life than I ever wished to. "Darling, you did what you had to do. You stood up for yourself, for your dignity. That's more important than staying in a marriage built on distrust." The biggest change, besides the obvious, was Alex's departure. He called me once just before leaving. "I can't stay here, not after everything. I need to start fresh somewhere where every corner doesn't remind me of all this." I understand, I said. You'll always have a friend in me, Alex. You were the only one who really saw me through this mess. He chuckled, the sound holding a shadow of our shared troubles. You take care of yourself, all right? After hanging up, I felt a pang of loss, not just for the relationship I thought I had with Mark, but for the family I thought I belonged to. Months passed and life found a new rhythm. My blog started gaining traction, becoming a space where I could share not just fitness and health tips, but also personal stories of resilience and starting over. It resonated with people more than I expected. As I settled into this new chapter of my life, finding solace in the routine I'd built for me and my son, my phone rang out of the blue one afternoon. The screen flashed a name I hadn't seen in a while, Linda. My initial instinct was to ignore it, let it go to voicemail, but something, maybe curiosity or a desire to finally put it all to rest, made me answer. Hello. Her voice came through shaky and laced with regret. Erica, I was wondering, could I see him? My grandson. The audacity of her request stopped me cold. I was transported back to that living room, feeling the weight of her accusations all over again. You've got some nerve, Linda, I said, my voice steady but firm. After all the hell you put us through, now you want to play grandma? You didn't even want to see him before. She started to cry, mumbling apologies between sobs, trying to explain herself. But I wasn't having any of it. Save your tears, Linda. It's too late for sorry. But please, I just want to make things right, she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. I sighed, a deep, weary sigh. You should have thought of that before you made your bed. Now you get to lie in it alone. Without waiting for her response, I hung up. The finality of the click echoed through me. It was harsh, but necessary. A line had been drawn, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was in control of where things were headed. Looking at my son, now a little older and wiser beyond his years, I knew we were going to be okay. We had each other, and a future that was ours to shape. Life has a peculiar way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. That's how I met Marco. My name is Cora, and at 28, I was working as a fitness trainer at a local gym, living a life as structured and disciplined as my workout routines. Then one day, Marco walked in, looking for a quick session, and ended up changing the entire course of my life. Hey, I'm Marco, he said, flashing a smile that could light up the darkest corners. Heard this is the best place to get in shape. Mind showing me the ropes? I raised an eyebrow, sizing him up. He didn't exactly fit the mold of the usual gym goer, more like someone who spent his days charming his way through life. Sure, Marco. Follow my lead, and you'll be in shape in no time. But I warn you, I don't go easy on anyone. He chuckled, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Wouldn't have it any other way. Lead on, Cora. Training Marco was like trying to tame a wild stallion. He had energy for days and a stubborn streak to match. But beneath the jokes and playful banter, there was a genuine connection neither of us could deny. As days turned into weeks, our gym sessions became the highlight of my life. It wasn't just about the workouts anymore. It was about the laughter, the stories, and the moments we shared. One evening, as we wrapped up, Marco turned to me, his usual grin replaced by a serious look. Cora, I need to tell you something. I'm not just here for the workouts. I'm here for you. You have this fire, this strength I've never seen in anyone else, and I'm crazy about you. I was taken aback. This was Marco, the guy who joked about everything, now stating in front of me, bare and honest. Marco, I don't know what to say. You're not what I expected, but I can't deny there's something between us. Something real. That was the start of our whirlwind romance, intense and passionate, like a storm that swept everything in its path. Before I knew it, I was saying I do to the man who had walked into my gym and turned my world upside down. But the fairy tale didn't last long. After the wedding, Marco dropped a bombshell that would set the stage for the battles to come. Cora, we need to move into my mother's house. Family is everything to me, and I need to be there for them. My stomach dropped. Maria, his mother, was a force to be reckoned with, sharp-tongued and critical, a stark contrast to Marco's warmth. And then there was Sofia, his sister, a mirror image of her mother's arrogance and disdain. Marco, are you sure about this? Our relationship with your mother and Sofia is strained, to put it mildly. Is this really the best idea? I asked, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. He took my hands in his gaze earnest. I know it's not ideal, but family means everything to me. We'll make it work. I promise. It's me and our little family against the world. Moving into Marco's family home felt like stepping onto a battlefield. Every day was a struggle under Maria's strict rules. Don't forget the dishes need doing, and the living room needs a good dusting. We run a tight ship here, she would say, her voice dripping with anything but warmth. I would nod, biting back the retorts that threatened to spill. Of course, Maria. I wouldn't want the house to be anything less than perfect. Sophia would smirk from her perch at the kitchen table, her eyes scanning me like I was some bug under a microscope. Yeah, Cora, and try to keep up, will you? We don't need any dead weight around here. The days felt long, the work unending. It was like living in a loop, each day a repeat of the last. Cleaning, cooking, trying to find my footing in a house that felt like a minefield. Marco was there, but not really. His restaurant was his world, and I felt like a ghost in his family home. Then, life threw me another curveball. I was pregnant. The news should have been a beacon of joy, but in Maria's house, it was just another ripple in already troubled waters. Pregnant, huh? Maria's voice was flat, her eyes hard. Well, don't expect any special treatment. This house doesn't run itself, you know. I placed my hand instinctively on my belly. I don't expect special treatment, Maria, but I do expect some understanding. I'm carrying a child, your grandchild. That shut her up, if only for a moment. But the chores piled up and the glares grew sharper, making the house feel smaller each day. Sophia was no help, watching my struggles with a satisfied smirk. You're slowing down, Cora, she would taunt. Can't handle a bit of housework. What kind of mother are you going to be? I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I held it in for Marco, for the tiny heartbeat grew stronger each day. The tension was a constant companion, an unwelcome guest at every meal and every moment. Marco, please talk to them, I pleaded one night, the weight of the day heavy on my shoulders. Your mother and Sophia treat me like I'm nothing, like I don't belong. He sighed, a tired sound that spoke volumes. Cora, they're just set in their ways. It's how they've always been. Just give it time, it'll get better. But it didn't get better, it got harder. The house became more suffocating, Maria and Sophia more relentless. I was just trying to keep my head above water and protect the tiny life that depended on me. Each night, as I lay in bed, the moon casting shadows across the room, I felt the weight of my reality pressing down, heavier than ever. I made a silent vow. I wouldn't let them break me. Their disdain and sharp words wouldn't define me. I was stronger than they realized, and one day they'd see, this house, this battlefield, would be mine to conquer. Becoming a mother was supposed to be the most beautiful chapter of my life, but in Maria's house, it felt more like a trial by fire. Luca was my little bundle of joy, my ray of sunshine amid the storm. Yet every coo and every cry was met with relentless pressure and criticism from Maria and Sophia. Really, Cora, can't you keep that child quiet? Maria snapped, her tone sharp as knives, every time Luca whimpered. I held him closer, whispering words of comfort, trying to shield him from his grandmother's harshness. He's just a baby, Maria. Babies cry, that's how they communicate. Sophia rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with disdain. Oh please, you're just not doing it right, Cora. Maybe if you paid more attention to him instead of feeling sorry for yourself, he'd be quieter. Their words stung, each one a reminder of how out of place I felt in this house and this family. It wasn't just the verbal jabs, it was the scrutinizing looks, especially after my body had changed during pregnancy. The weight I'd gained became a favorite topic of ridicule. Looks like those fitness trainer days are long gone, huh, Cora? Maria would chuckle, her smirk infuriating. Better lay off the sweets if you want to fit into your old clothes again. I clenched my fists, forcing a smile to hide my hurt. I'm proud of my body, Maria. It brought Luca into this world. The weight is temporary, but the love I have for my son is forever. But my defiance fell on deaf ears. I was the outsider, the intruder in their perfect little world. And no matter how hard I tried, it never seemed to be enough. Enough was enough. The constant belittling from Maria and Sophia wasn't just chipping away at my spirit. It was igniting a fire within me, a fire to reclaim my life, my body, and my self-respect. I decided to take control right there in the suffocating walls of that house. I started small, turning the corner of my room into a personal gym. It wasn't much, just a mat, some weights, and a determination as strong as steel. This is it, Luca, I whispered, cradling him in one arm while setting up my phone to record. Mommy's turning it all around, starting now. The first few days were tough. The exercises left me breathless, my muscles screaming in protest. But each drop of sweat and every aching limb felt like a triumph. You think you can just bounce back, Cora? Maria sneered one day, watching me pant through my routine. It's not that easy, you know. Takes more than a few stretches to fix what's broken. I wiped my brow, fixing her with a steely gaze. Watch me, Maria. I'm not just fixing what's broken. I'm building something stronger. I don't need your approval or your snide comments. That's when I decided to go public with my journey. I started a YouTube channel and an Instagram page sharing every struggle and every victory. It was raw and real, and to my surprise, it resonated with so many out there. Look at this, Luca. I'd say, showing him the screen filled with comments and likes. We're not alone. There are so many rooting for us. Then came the offers from advertisers, turning my little corner of the internet into a thriving source of income. I was stunned and overwhelmed. But above all, I felt empowered. Can you believe this, Luca? I whispered, tucking him into bed. We're doing it. We're really doing it. But with every success, the tension in the house grew thicker. Maria and Sofia couldn't stand it, the way I turned their ridicule into armor, their disdain into a driving force. What's this now, Cora? Playing the star while the rest of us do the real work? Sofia spat one day, her eyes filled with venom. I stood my ground, Luca on my hip, my heart stronger than ever. It's called turning the tide, Sofia. It's called taking back control. And if that bothers you, well, that's your problem, not mine. What once felt like a prison was now just a backdrop. My world was larger, brighter, filled with the love of my son and the support of a community that saw me for who I truly was. The success of my online channels was a sweet victory, but it brought a new kind of challenge. Marco was stunned by the numbers, the comments, the sheer scale of it all. But his pride was bruised. He didn't want the world, especially his family, to see the shift in our roles. Cora, this is incredible, he said one evening, his eyes pleading. But you know how my mother and Sofia are. Please, let's keep this between us. I don't want them thinking I'm not the provider. I sighed, the weight of his request heavy on my shoulders. Marco, I'm proud of what I've achieved. It's not just about the money. It's about respect, about independence. He nodded, reaching for my hand. I know, and I respect that. But in this house, it's complicated. Let's just keep it our little secret for now. Reluctantly, I agreed and began transferring $4,000 a month to Marco's account. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Maria and Sofia continued their tirade, oblivious to the truth. They saw me as a leech, living off their precious son and brother. You're just a freeloader, Cora, always taking and never contributing, Maria snarled, her words as sharp as ever. I held back my retort, using my silent shield against her barbs. I contribute in my own way, Maria, not that you'd ever acknowledge it. Sofia was no better. What do you even do all day, Cora? Lounge around while we do all the real work. Their ignorance was a bitter pill to swallow, but I swallowed it anyway. My focus was on Luca, my channels, my newfound strength. I'd walk with my son in the park, my camera constant companion, capturing moments, workouts, and the real me that they refused to see. Cora, you're wasting your time with those videos, Maria scoffed, watching me edit my latest post. But the numbers told a different story. The subscribers, the views, the comments. They were real, tangible, and they were mine. Maybe to you, Maria, but to me and to thousands out there, it's anything but a waste, I replied, my confidence unwavering. Marco's restaurant troubles added another layer to her already complicated life. One day, he approached me, his pride barely holding back his desperation. Cora, the restaurant is struggling. I need help. Could you? Would you lend me some money just to tide things over? His vulnerability was a rare sight, tugging at my heartstrings. Of course, Marco, I'll help. But this isn't just a loan. It's an investment in us, in our family. His relief was palpable, but it was tinged with the unspoken truth. I was the lifeline, the silent savior of the family facade. As I transferred $10,000, I watched the gratitude and guilt flicker in his eyes. I sensed the balance had shifted. Time in that house felt like a ticking bomb, with each day bringing us closer to an explosion. Sofia's marriage introduced her husband, Rick, into our already cramped space, and his presence only heightened the chaos and tension that had become a constant in our lives. You two just take up space, Maria sneered, her words slicing through the crowded living room. You're nothing but freeloaders, Cora, you and that kid. I clenched my teeth, hugging Luca closer. We're family, Maria, or at least that's what a house like this is supposed to mean. But when Sophia announced her pregnancy, Maria's attitude shifted to something even harsher and more direct. This house is getting crowded, Cora, and frankly, you and your boy are just in the way. The words stung, but before I could muster a response, Marco dropped a bombshell of his own at dinner. I have to go out of town for a few weeks. Restaurant business, he said, avoiding my gaze. A few weeks in this madhouse without the slightest buffer Marco provided felt like a sentence I couldn't bear. You're leaving now? With everything going on? I asked, my voice barely a whisper over the lump in my throat. He didn't meet my eyes. I have to, Cora. It's important. And just like that, he was gone. The door shut behind him, and the weight of his absence settled over the house like a thick fog. I tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Luca. We went for walks, did our workouts in the park, anything to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the house. But when we returned from kindergarten one day, the sight that greeted us froze me in my tracks. Our belongings, bags, suitcases, Luca's toys, were piled outside the front door like trash. Mommy, what's happening? Luca's small voice trembled with confusion and fear. I swallowed hard, fighting back tears as I approached the door. Maria, Sophia. What is this? Why are things outside? I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. The response came cold and merciless from the other side of the door. You heard me, Cora. The house is too crowded, and you two are just taking up space. It's time for you to leave and find somewhere else to call home. Maria's voice was like a knife, and Sophia's echoing laughter twisted it deeper. I stood there, my whole world collapsing around me. What should I tell Marco? What would I say to my son when he asked where his father, his home, had gone? Their laughter was the only answer, a cruel reminder that we were expendable. An inconvenience easily discarded. With a heavy heart and a mind swirling with shock and betrayal, I gathered our belongings. Holding Luca's hand tightly, I stepped away from the house that was never a home. The pain was sharp, the betrayal bitter, but it was the clarity of the moment that struck me most. This was the end of one chapter, a chapter of struggle and pain, but it was also the beginning of something new, something ours. I rented an apartment, a small but safe haven for Luca and me. As I unpacked our lives, the reality of what had happened and what I had escaped began to sink in. I was alone, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope, a sense of freedom. Settling into the new apartment was a bittersweet experience. It was a sanctuary where the shadows of Maria's house couldn't reach us. I meticulously arranged our belongings, trying to make the space feel like home when my phone buzzed with a message that sent shockwaves through my world. It was from Sophia, her message laced with sickening glee. You think you know Marco? Think again, Cora. Attached was a link, a portal to a truth I had never imagined. Trembling, I clicked it, my heart racing. I clicked the link, and my world fractured as the screen lit up with images that shattered my reality. There was Marco, not mired in restaurant troubles but tangled in the arms of another woman. Their intimacy was unmistakable, the photos standing in stark contrast to the lies he had spun for me. The most recent shots were dated just yesterday. The business trip, the stress, everything had been a cruel facade, and I was the unwitting financier of his double life. A numbing cold washed over me, the pain and betrayal intertwining into a fierce resolve. For years I had been the backbone, the silent supporter of a man who lived in shadows while his family treated me like dirt. A week of emotional turmoil was punctuated by incessant calls from Marco, whose voice had once been a source of comfort but was now a trigger for my contempt. Cora, please, you need to come back. Mom and Sophia crossed the line, and the restaurant is in shambles. I need you. The bills are piling up. His pleas, once capable of tugging at my heartstrings, now ignited nothing but disdain. So you only need me to pay your bills and your family's bills. His voice cracked, desperation seeping through. We're still a family, you, me, Luca. Isn't that worth fighting for? A bitter laugh escaped me. A family? Is that what you call this charade? No, Marco, we're far from a family. And as for your restaurant, your debts are yours to deal with. Silence fell heavily between us, almost tangible. I could feel the weight of his predicament pressing down on him. But Cora, the money? Your problem, Marco. Your restaurant, your money. I'm done being your lifeline. I cut in, my voice unwavering. However, we will discuss this tomorrow. I will come to your mother's house. I made my decision. I returned to that house, not as the broken woman they expected, but as the force they never saw coming. Armed with the truth and a plan that would turn their world upside down, I stepped into the lion's den. Marco's face lit up with a mix of hope and surprise, but Maria and Sophia's expressions were cold and calculating. They clearly weren't thrilled about my return. "Look who's back," Maria said, her tone dripping with disdain. "Missed us, have you?" I met her gaze without flinching. "Not at all, Maria. I'm here for something important." I handed Marco an envelope. His face drained of color as he recognized it for what it was: divorce papers. "Marco," I stated, relishing the taste of freedom, "our marriage ends here." Maria and Sophia's initial shock quickly morphed into smiles. "Finally getting rid of the dead weight, and Marco?" Sophia jeered, her laughter grating on my nerves. But their joy was premature. "Don't get too excited," I interjected sharply. "You might want to sit down for this. It's been me, not Marco, keeping this household afloat." The room fell silent, stunned. Marco's eyes darted between me and his family as the truth hung in the air. "It's true," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "The restaurant's been failing. Cora's been covering everything. She transferred $4,000 to me every month." Maria and Sophia turned on him, their faces twisted with anger and disbelief. "You lied to us. You let her pay our bills." Maria's voice was shrill. "What should we do now without her money?" "I'm going to file for alimony," Marco said, desperation clear in his tone. "I earn less, so it's only fair." His mother and sister delighted in this revelation, clapping their hands as if they were celebrating a victory. Their hollow applause echoed in the room, but I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. "You think that's going to work, Marco? You won't get a cent from me, especially not after I found out about your affair." The color drained from his face. "How did you?" he stammered, his bravado crumbling. I pointedly looked at Sophia. "Your sister was kind enough to send me all the proof I needed." What erupted next was chaos, accusations flying as betrayals were laid bare. Marco and Sophia shouted at each other, arms flailing amid the frenzy. But I remained calm, my next move crystal clear. "I'm taking back what's mine," I declared, my voice cutting through the noise. "Every appliance, every piece of furniture I paid for. You're left with what you've earned, which is nothing." And that's exactly what I did. I stripped the house of every trace of my financial support, leaving them to face the consequences of their actions. Their pleas for mercy and forgiveness fell on deaf ears as I blocked their numbers, severing the last ties to a life of deceit and disrespect. The fallout was swift. Marco's restaurant crumbled under the weight of debt. The house was lost, and Sophia's husband walked away from the wreckage of their family. They were left with nothing but each other and the mistakes they had made, crammed into a rented apartment. As for Luca and me, we flourished in our new life. Our days were filled with love, laughter, and the peace we had fought so hard to find. The past was behind us, a distant memory overshadowed by the bright future we were building together. We were more than survivors. We were conquerors, and our story was just beginning. Hi, I'm Emma Clark, and I grew up in the small town of Harrow. It's nothing glamorous, just a place where everyone knows each other and secrets have a way of coming to light. After graduating, I dove straight into the retail world, specifically lingerie. To me, it wasn't just a job, it was my passion. I poured my heart and soul into my work, and eventually, I became the proud owner of a chain of lingerie stores ranging from quaint boutiques to upscale outlets. I was dedicated to my business and exceptionally good at it. But as I clocked in the hours, days, and months, I started to feel like something was missing. That's when Michael entered my life. It all began with a simple ping on my phone. A friend request from a sharply dressed guy with piercing eyes. I didn't recognize him, but his profile hinted at a man who had his life together. A lawyer, hence the tailored suit. Curiosity got the best of me, and I hit accept. It wasn't long before his first message appeared one evening while I was crunching numbers. "Hey Emma, thanks for accepting my request. I noticed we have some friends in common. How's it going?" Simple enough, right? But it was his follow-up messages that truly drew me in. He was witty and had a knack for making me laugh even after the longest days. I remember one night we were joking about the worst pickup lines we'd ever heard, and his humor just clicked with me. "Michael, have you ever heard this one? Are you a magician? Because whenever I look at you, everyone else disappears." "I bet you've heard that one in your line of work, Emma." "Oh, for sure. Top of the cringe chart, but here's mine. Are you a photographer? Because I really want to leave this shoot. He tacked out a laugh. At least I hoped it was genuine. After a few weeks of messaging, he suggested meeting for coffee to put a real face to the texts. The first time we met was at this little dive I loved, known for its strong brews. He was already there when I walked in, absorbed in a newspaper. When he looked up, the polished image from his profile didn't do him justice. He was even better in person. Emma, wow, you actually look like your pictures. That's a rarity in this city, he said, and I couldn't help but smile. Thanks. I think you look pretty great yourself. Despite his lawyer vibe, he laughed, and the ice melted away instantly. We talked for hours. There was substance to our conversation. Michael asked about my business and my dreams, genuinely listening to my every word. When we had been seeing each other for a year, he decided it was time to take our relationship to the next level. I was closing up shop one chilly evening when he arrived unexpectedly, his breath visible in the cold air as he presented me with a small velvet box. Emma, I've been thinking, he started, looking uncharacteristically nervous. We've been doing so well, you and I think it's time we considered making this permanent. I froze, the keys to my store still in my hand. Michael, are you saying what I think you're saying? His charming, lopsided grin appeared. Yes, I am. Marry me, Emma. Let's not play games anymore. I want you as my partner for life. My heart raced, and a whirlwind of thoughts flooded my mind. Was I ready for marriage? But looking into his eyes and seeing the sincerity there made me feel like it was right. Yes, I breathed. I'll marry you. Then, his expression shifted to something more serious. But there's something else we need to discuss. Some legal matters. The word legal hit me like a splash of ice water. Legal? Really, Michael? Is that necessary? He rushed to explain, taking my trembling hands in his. It's not that I don't trust you, Emma. It's just practical. As a lawyer, I've seen too many messy splits not to be cautious. Plus, it'll protect us both. What kind of protection are we talking about? I asked, a mix of curiosity and concern coloring my voice. He pulled out some documents from his briefcase. It's straightforward. If either of us cheats, the cheater loses their assets to the other. It's simple and fair. You know I would never cheat on you, Emma. This is just a safety net. I took a deep breath, trying to wrap my head around it all. The romantic proposal suddenly tangled with talk of cheating and assets wasn't what I had envisioned for my engagement. But maybe life with Michael wouldn't be ordinary, and perhaps this was just part of that. I glanced at the papers and then back at him, sensing his earnestness. All right, I'll think about it, but let me be clear, Michael. I have no intention of giving you a reason to use this against me. His relief was palpable. We celebrated that night, and despite the strange mix of emotions, the evening was perfect. The restaurant was cozy, the food delicious, and Michael was attentive, making me laugh and helping me forget about the legalities for a few hours. As we strolled back to the car beneath the stars, he stopped and pulled me close. You know I love you, right? No piece of paper is going to change that. I nodded, resting my head against his chest. I know, Michael. I love you too, I replied softly, but let's make sure this prenuptial agreement doesn't come between us, okay? He pressed a gentle kiss to the top of my head. It won't, I promise. A few days later, I signed the prenuptial agreement after reviewing it with my own lawyer, just to be sure. It felt strange to sign a document discussing the potential end of a marriage when ours hadn't even begun, but life is a gamble, and I was all in. I just hoped my bet on Michael would pay off. We were the couple everyone envied, always laughing and whispering to each other at parties. But after a few months, I sensed something shifting. At first, it was subtle, just a chill that settled over us, but soon enough, real trouble emerged. One afternoon, while shopping for new scents at a perfume store, I struck up a casual conversation with a sales associate about fragrances. When we left the store, Michael was fuming. Who was that? He barked as soon as we were clear of the crowded mall. I was taken aback. The sales guy. I was just asking about the perfumes. Why did it seem like you were really into him? Michael shot back, his eyes narrowing. I stared at him in disbelief. Michael, I was talking about perfumes. What's gotten into you? He scoffed, shaking his head and turning to walk away. Nothing. Forget it. Let's just go home. But it didn't end there. It only escalated. From that moment on, whenever I spoke to another man, Michael would sulk or make snide remarks. He became distant, retreating behind his laptop or phone and leaving me to eat dinner alone most nights. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I found him in his study, staring blankly at a spreadsheet. Michael, we need to talk, I said, standing in the doorway. He didn't look up. It's about us, about how you've been acting lately. I walked over to shut his laptop. You've been distant, and every time I interact with another guy, you act like I've committed some crime. He rubbed his temples and sighed heavily. Emma, you don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. When I see you laughing and chatting with other men, it just gets to me. Sometimes it feels like you don't respect our relationship enough to keep your distance. We stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken words and the remnants of our raised voices. Then the rumors started creeping in. Friends began whispering that Michael had been telling people I was a flirt, chatting up other men whenever he turned his back. I couldn't believe it. You've been talking about me behind my back? I demanded, telling people I flirt with other guys. Look, Emma, it's not like that. I might have said a few things, but it's only because I see how they look at you, he replied, defensive. I cut him off, my anger boiling over. I don't believe this. You have no right to spread lies about me. You're supposed to be my partner, not my biggest critic. After that blow-up, things between us cooled down. One morning, I found a note from Michael on the kitchen counter. His handwriting, usually neat and precise, looked rushed this time. I picked up the note, my heart racing a bit faster than usual. Emma, let's try to start over. Meet me at the Grand View Hotel, room 204, at 8 p.m. tonight. Let's put the past behind us and move forward. I stared at the note for a full minute, taken aback. This was unexpected. Maybe it was his way of reaching out, trying to mend what had been broken. Hope fluttered in my chest like a fragile bird, and I decided to go. The day dragged on, and work felt like a blur. I couldn't focus on customer orders or inventory. My mind kept drifting back to the note and what the evening might hold. Could we really start fresh? By the time I closed up the shop and headed to the hotel, I was a bundle of nerves. Arriving at the Grand View, my palms were sweaty. I checked my reflection in the car mirror, fixing my hair and dabbing on a bit of lipstick. Not too much. I didn't want to seem like I was trying too hard. Room 204 was on the second floor. The hallway was quiet, just the soft hum of the air conditioning. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again, then hesitantly turned the doorknob. It was unlocked. The room was dimly lit by a bedside lamp, casting long shadows across the bed. An open bottle of wine sat on the table, 2 glasses beside it, and a small plate of sliced fruit. But there was no sign of Michael. Michael, I called out as I stepped inside, letting the door click shut behind me. Silence enveloped me, broken only by the soft whir of the air conditioner. I considered leaving, but something made me stay. I poured myself a glass of wine, the deep red liquid swirling in the glass. Just one glass, I muttered to myself, hoping to calm my nerves. I took a sip. The wine was rich and slightly too sweet. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. The wine began to make my head feel a little fuzzy, or was that just my nerves? I lay back to rest my eyes for a moment, the room spinning gently before everything faded to black. When I finally woke up, it was dark outside. I tried to sit up, but a pounding headache made it difficult, and my thoughts were foggy. My phone lay on the nightstand, and I grabbed it. The light from the screen was blinding in the dim room. I checked the time. It was past midnight. Panic clawed at my chest as I struggled to remember what had happened and how I ended up lying there. But it felt like grasping at smoke. I jolted awake, suddenly aware that I was lying there without any clothes. Panic surged through me as I fumbled to dial Michael's number, my fingers trembling. When he picked up, his voice was cold and distant. Emma, what's up? Michael, where are you? Why didn't you come to the hotel? My voice shook with a mix of anxiety and frustration. Hotel? What are you talking about? Emma, are you drunk? Have you lost your mind? I'm at the Grand View, like you told me. Why did you ask me to come here if you weren't going to show up? My anger flared, drowning out my confusion. Emma, I don't know what sick game you're playing, but I didn't write any note. I've been home all night. You're out of control, running around with your lovers. As I drove home from that disastrous night, Michael's cold, dismissive voice replayed in my head, leaving me in a state of turmoil. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare from which I couldn't wake. Pulling into the driveway, the familiar sights of our home offered no comfort. Instead, they twisted into a knot of dread in my stomach. I stepped inside, and the tension hit me like a wave. Michael was pacing the living room, his face twisted in anger. As soon as he saw me, he exploded. "There you are, the wandering wife returns," he yelled, his voice dripping with scorn. "Michael, please, we need to talk. Something very wrong happened tonight," I pleaded, my voice shaky yet desperate to make him understand. But he wouldn't listen. Instead, he slammed a stack of photos on the table. "Explain these," he shouted. I picked up the photos, my hands trembling. They showed me in a hotel room, in bed with a man I'd never seen before. My heart sank. "Michael, I don't know who this is. I swear I've never seen him before. Something happened to me tonight, something I can't explain." He laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that sent shivers down my spine. "A monstrous mistake or just your monstrous behavior? Marrying you was the real mistake." Tears stung my eyes, but I fought them back, desperate to stay strong and clear-headed. "I didn't do this, Michael. You have to believe me." "Believe you? Why should I? You're a liar and a cheat, and I'll make sure you don't get a cent from me. I'm going to court, and I will take everything from you, just like we agreed." He spat out the words before grabbing his suitcase, already packed, and heading for the door. With a final glare, he slammed the door behind him, leaving me alone in the echoing silence of the house. I collapsed onto the couch, my body shaking. The pain in my head throbbed relentlessly, an intensity that made it hard to think. But it was more than just a headache. It felt as if my brain were shrouded in fog, my memories of the night blurred and inconsistent. That's when it hit me, the wine. I had only had one glass, but the dizziness and blackout didn't add up. It was too extreme, too sudden. I grabbed my phone and dialed my friend Lisa, a nurse, hoping she could help explain my symptoms. "Lisa, something's not right. I had a glass of wine, and then everything went black. I woke up hours later, and now Michael has these photos. It doesn't add up." My words tumbled out in a rush. There was a pause on the other end as Lisa processed what I said. "Emma, it sounds like you might have been drugged. You need to get to a hospital or a lab and get tested right now. Tell them what happened, especially about the wine and your symptoms." The drive to the lab felt like a blur as my thoughts raced, desperately trying to piece everything together. Once there, I explained the situation to the technician, who nodded solemnly and took several vials of blood. A couple of days later, I heard a heavy thud at my doorstep. It was a letter from Michael. My hands shook as I tore it open, confirming my worst fears in the cold, formal language of the legal notice. Michael was suing me for infidelity, aiming to strip me of everything I owned based on our prenuptial agreement. The trial was set for a month from now. I called my lawyer, Paul, immediately. His voice offered a small comfort amid the chaos. "Emma, come to my office. We need to strategize." As I drove to his office, my mind raced through every possible scenario, except the one where I emerged unscathed. Upon arriving, I noticed a familiar figure, Michael, walking alongside a young man, the same one from the photos. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and started recording. I caught them exchanging an envelope, which the young man quickly tucked into his jacket. My heart raced as I realized the significance of what I might have just captured. At Paul's office, I showed him the video. His eyebrows shot up as he watched the exchange. "This is good, Emma. It looks very suspicious. I think it's time we brought in a private investigator." Paul's friend, Jack, a seasoned private investigator, took the case. He moved quickly, tailing the young actor and digging into his background. A few days later, Jack called us into his office with news. I spoke to the kid, he began, his expression serious. "He's a bit of an actor, down on his luck. Your husband hired him to play a part, the part of your lover. He also confessed that your husband planned everything, even the drugged wine." As we were talking, my phone pinged with an email. My blood test results had arrived. I opened the attachment, my breath catching as I read the findings. Positive for a potent sedative. Just as Jack had said. I passed my phone to Paul, who read the results and looked up, his eyes hardening with resolve. "This is it, Emma. This is what we need. With this evidence, we can not only defend you, but also turn the tables on Michael." Paul advised me to keep everything under wraps until the court date. "Let's not tip him off. We'll hit him with this in court and give him the surprise of his life." A week had passed since the hotel debacle, and I was back in the familiar confines of my lingerie store, trying to distract myself from the looming court date. It was an ordinary afternoon until Michael walked in, a woman on his arm. "Emma, meet Leela, my bride-to-be," he announced, pride in his voice that didn't quite reach his eyes. Leela looked young, too young, perhaps, to grasp the type of man she was dealing with. She glanced at me with a mix of curiosity and judgment. Michael wasted no time stirring up trouble. Take a good look around, Emma. Soon enough, all this will be mine. His arm swept dramatically across the expanse of my store, a smirk playing on his lips. Leila's eyes followed his gesture, her expression hardening with newfound conviction. I wanted to reach out and warn her, but I recalled Paul's strict instructions to remain silent until the hearing. All I could manage was a thin smile, responding with as much dignity as I could muster. We'll see what the judge has to say about that, Michael. The day of the court session arrived all too quickly. The courtroom felt austere, the air thick with tension. Michael, ever the lawyer, had chosen to represent himself. He stood before us, adjusting his tie, a clear display of self-assurance, as he prepared to deliver his opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice steady and clear. Today, you will see the true colors of a woman who not only broke the vows of marriage but sought to destroy the sanctity of our home with her deceit. He gestured dramatically to the evidence displayed on the screen behind him. My wife, Emma, was not the faithful partner she promised to be. Photos from the hotel room flashed on the screen, eliciting murmurs from the courtroom. For months, I lived in torment, suspecting her infidelities, and finally, as these pictures show, my worst fears were confirmed. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle as he walked closer to where I sat, his eyes locking onto mine. Emma here would have you believe she's a victim, innocent and caught in circumstances beyond her control. His tone was scathing, his words rehearsed yet effective. But I tell you, she is not a victim. She is a perpetrator, a destroyer of our union. As he spoke, I noted the calculated pauses and measured glances at the judge, the way he constructed each sentence with the precision of a seasoned attorney. The evidence is clear, undeniable. Emma's actions have caused irreparable damage, not just to her marriage but to the very fabric of trust that binds any relationship. His speech crescendoed in a dramatic plea for justice. Paul, my lawyer, rose to address the court with calm authority, his briefcase filled with the evidence that would clear my name. Your Honor, he began, his voice steady and commanding, today we not only defend Emma Clark's honor but also reveal a pattern of deceit orchestrated by her husband, Michael Clark. He gestured to the back of the courtroom, and the actor Michael had hired entered, causing a stir among the spectators. Paul asked him to share his involvement, and the young man looked nervously around before speaking. I was hired to act a part. I thought it was just a prank, he admitted, his voice shaky. I didn't realize the seriousness of what was being orchestrated. Paul nodded gravely, then presented the blood test results to the court. These results show that Emma was incapacitated against her will, drugged by substances she had no knowledge of consuming. The courtroom murmured as the implications sank in. Furthermore, Paul continued, his tone hardening. This is not the first time Mr. Clark has employed such tactics. He laid out evidence of Michael's previous marriages, detailing how similar patterns had led to his unjust enrichment at the expense of his former wives. As Paul concluded his arguments, the weight of the evidence was palpable. We asked not only for the dismissal of the fraudulent claims made against Emma, but also for just compensation for the ordeal she has endured. The judge nodded, absorbing everything before delivering her verdict. After careful consideration of the evidence presented, I find in favor of Emma Clark. The prenuptial agreement is hereby annulled. Relief washed over me, and tears pricked my eyes, not just from the victory, but from the vindication. Furthermore, the judge added, the court awards Mrs. Clark damages in the amount of $400,000. Michael's face turned ashen, his future crumbling before him. His fiancée, present in the courtroom, hurried out, only to return briefly to whisper a thank you to me for exposing the truth before leaving him for good. News of the trial spread like wildfire, the sensational details making headlines. Michael's professional reputation was irrevocably damaged. He was stripped of his license to practice law. The revelation prompted his ex-wives to file lawsuits against him, uncovering a trail of deceit that left him financially and socially bankrupt. As I closed up shop one evening, the glow of the sunset casting long shadows on the floor, I reflected on the journey. The battle had been hard-fought, marked by moments of despair and indignity, but ultimately it stood as a testament to resilience and justice. I'm Ellie, and this is where my journey begins. I grew up in a small town, moving from one foster home to another until I finally found a place with the Thompsons. They gave me the priceless gift of stability, something I had longed for all my life. Life was pretty plain until I headed to college, becoming the first in my foster family to venture into the big city. I immersed myself in studying languages, with Japanese being my focus. After working tirelessly, I landed a job as a translator at an international trading company, a huge achievement for a small-town girl like me. One ordinary Tuesday, I walked into a cozy cafe near my office and ordered my usual black coffee. That's when I saw him. Jack, tall and with a smile that could light up a room. He was on his phone, looking all business yet somehow relaxed. When our eyes met, I felt an undeniable connection. "Hey, I've never seen you here before," I said, trying to sound casual as I settled into my seat with my coffee. He looked up, his smile widening. "Just trying to escape the office chaos." "I'm Jack," he said, extending his hand. I shook it and felt a spark. "I'm Ellie. So what brings Mr. Escape the office to my favorite spot?" I asked, intrigued. "Good coffee and better company, it seems," he quipped, and from that moment, we hit it off. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and before we knew it, a year had passed. Our conversations had evolved beyond coffee chats. Jack was a city guy, charming and worldly, but we both knew life wasn't always smooth sailing. After a year of dating, we decided to get married, and I was over the moon. I wanted him to meet the Thompsons, the people who shaped me into who I am. My foster parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, were salt-of-the-earth types who lived simply and worked hard. They had been fixing up their house, so they rented a tiny apartment that was nothing special but filled with warmth and love. "It may not be much, but it's filled with good memories," I told Jack. He nodded, but I caught the look in his eyes as he scanned the cramped space. He was clearly uncomfortable. We spent the weekend there, and my folks treated him like royalty, but Jack was distant, always checking his watch, eager to return to the city. As we drove home that Sunday night, the silence in the car felt heavy. "Jack, you've been quiet. What's up?" I finally asked. He sighed, clearly reluctant to speak. "Look, Ellie, your folks are nice, but we come from different worlds," he said, his words steaming. I fought to keep my composure. "What does that mean?" "It's just different. I'm not used to this simple life," he admitted, trying to smooth things over quickly. I turned to look out the window, biting my lip as I considered the differences between our lives. "Jack, I don't need fancy things, but we have to respect where we both come from," I said firmly. He nodded. "Right. Of course, I love you, Ellie. That's what matters," he said, but a part of me wondered if we truly understood each other. That night, I lay awake, reflecting on the simple life I cherished and the complicated world I was stepping into. Just days after our awkward visit to my childhood home, it was my turn to meet Jack's side of the family, his mother, Vivian. High-rise apartment in the city center was decked out in lavish decor that screamed wealth. When we arrived, she greeted us at the door, dressed in designer clothes from head to toe, and her apartment looked like something out of a magazine. "Ellie, isn't it? And what is it you do?" Vivian asked, sizing me up as if I were a product she was considering. "I'm a translator. I work with Japanese clients at a trading company," I replied, trying to sound confident. "Oh, impressive," she said with a half smile, but her eyes were scanning me for flaws. When I mentioned my background and my foster parents, her expression shifted. "From the province and fostered, you say? That doesn't seem quite fitting for my Jack." Jack jumped in quickly. "Mom, please. Ellie's wonderful and I love her. We're getting married." "Married? When's this happening? How are you planning it?" Vivian's tone changed to one that felt a bit too invasive. "We're thinking of something small and intimate, just us in Hawaii," I said, hoping to highlight the romance. Her eyes nearly bulged. "Hawaii? Just the two of you?" "No, that won't do. What will my friends think if I can't even throw my only son a proper wedding?" I tried to stay calm. "It's our day, Vivian. We just want something that feels true to us, without all the fuss." That was the tipping point. She huffed and declared the discussion over, walking out of the room. Jack glanced at me, his expression apologetic, and whispered, "Let me talk to her. We'll sort this out." 4 months flew by, and despite the rocky start, there we were in Hawaii, ready to say, "I do." It was supposed to be an intimate ceremony, just Jack and me, but of course, Vivian had other plans. She showed up, camera in hand, eager to capture every moment. It felt like she was lurking, ensuring she had plenty to post online. Jack seemed oblivious, basking in the sun and the joy of the ceremony. I tried to smile through it, leaning in to whisper, "I thought it would be just us." He squeezed my hand, his eyes sincere. "I know, I'm sorry, she's just excited. Let's try to enjoy our day." But Vivian was buzzing around us, her phone always up, shouting, "Smile here. Oh, this will look fabulous on my feed." I felt like a prop in her social media showcase rather than a bride on her wedding day. What was meant to be our special moment had turned into just another one of Vivian's extravagant productions. Coming home as newlyweds should have been about cozy, love-filled days. Breakfast in bed, slow dances in the living room, the works. At least it started that way. Jack slipped a stunning ring on my finger the day we got back, one that caught the light and sparkled endlessly. "It's been in my family for generations," he said, his eyes shining with pride. "Be careful with that ring. It's more than just expensive, it's an heirloom." Vivian chimed in, hovering over us like a dark cloud on a sunny day. Her reminder felt more like a warning, making my heart sink a little. The first few weeks, Jack and I were in our blissful bubble, stealing kisses and cooking together. But then Vivian started dropping by unannounced, like a storm that had settled over our home. It all began one afternoon when I was folding laundry, and the doorbell rang. There she was, that familiar look on her face, as if she were about to inspect a military base. "Just checking in on my favorite newlyweds," she said, but her eyes darted around the apartment as if she were searching for something wrong. I tried to be polite, making small talk, even as she wandered into the kitchen, her fingers gliding over every surface. "Ellie, darling, do you ever clean? And where are the fresh vegetables? A man needs his greens." Her tone dripped with disapproval. Jack just shrugged it off later when I told him, "She means well, babe. Just try to go with it." Go with it. My frustration bubbled up. "Jack, she's treating me like I'm on trial in my own home." He kissed my forehead casually, as if that would solve everything. "She's lonely, Ellie. Let's cut her some slack." But that slack turned into something else entirely. It escalated until one day I came home late from work, riding high on the excitement of signing a major contract with a new client from Japan. That is, until I found Vivian in my living room, an uninvited storm brewing. "I heard you've been spending a lot of time at that office late nights." She raised an eyebrow, her voice thick with suspicion. "Yeah, it's a big project. Lots of new opportunities," I tried to explain, but she clearly had other ideas. 2 days later, she personally showed up at my office, counting the men working with me out loud and loudly suggesting I could be having an affair with one of them. Without invitation, she barged into my boss's office, eyeing him because he was elderly, and declared, "Well, she definitely won't mess with the old man." I was mortified, my face burning as red as a beetroot. I demanded she leave and apologized profusely to my boss and colleagues for the disruption. Thankfully, Mr. Jackson had a sense of humor and just laughed it off. But the damage was done. That night, I lay awake, wondering how we'd gotten here. I'd had enough. I cornered Jack in our bedroom, my voice low and tense. "Your mom crossed the line today, Jack. She's accusing me of cheating, and it has to stop." He sighed deeply, weariness etched on his face. "Please just try to get along for me." But getting along increasingly felt like just putting up with nonsense. Things between Jack and me were getting rocky, largely due to Vivian's constant whispers in his ear. Jack had begun to nitpick everything about me, my clothing choices, my work hours. He had never minded before, but suddenly everything was an issue. "Ellie, why do you have to wear that to work?" He frowned one morning as I got ready. I was simply wearing a blouse and skirt, nothing fancy. "It's professional, Jack. What's wrong with it?" I replied, adjusting my skirt. "It's too much. You're just inviting comments from all those guys." His tone had a sharp edge, and I realized this was about more than just my outfit. This became a regular occurrence, but it peaked on my birthday. My boss gave me a small gift, just a book with a note that read, "To my practically daughter." It was an innocent, kind gesture, but Jack blew it out of proportion. "You see? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Why is he giving you gifts?" "It's not right, Ellie." Jack was furious when he saw the book. "It's just a book. He's like a father figure to me." I tried to explain, but Jack's eyes were clouded with suspicion, all thanks to Vivian's meddling. The tension at home had become unbearable, so I was relieved to head out on a business trip to a neighboring city. Our company was setting up a new factory, and I looked forward to a break from the drama. The trip went smoothly, and I was wrapping up with dinner alongside our Japanese partners when I noticed shadows lurking near the restaurant. My heart raced as I walked toward my hotel. The dimly lit street made me uneasy, and the shadows crept closer. Panicked, I asked two colleagues to walk me back. As we neared the hotel entrance, the light from the lanterns revealed who was following me: Jack and Vivian. "What the hell, Jack? What are you doing here?" I blurted out, unable to hide my shock. Vivian stepped forward, her expression twisted in anger. "We're making sure you're not up to any trouble. We can't trust you around all these men," she spat. My colleagues stared in disbelief, and I felt my face burn with embarrassment. "This is ridiculous. You're both acting like I'm some kind of criminal." But Vivian wasn't having it. "I'll be telling your parents about this. They should know what kind of woman you've turned out to be." I couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. "Go ahead. They'll laugh you out of town." The ride back was silent. Jack and his mother sat in the front, leaving me alone in the back seat, staring out the window as city lights blurred into streaks of color. Tears filled my eyes. I was married to the man I loved, yet I felt trapped in a nightmare, with Vivian as the relentless specter that wouldn't go away. When Vivian actually followed through on her threat and showed up at my parents' place, I was in disbelief. I couldn't believe it when Mom called, her voice trembling as she recounted the situation. "She's here, Ellie," my mother said, tone strained. "She demanded to see your father right away." So, I gave her the address to his workshop, my heart sinking as I realized how far this had gone. I felt my stomach drop as my mom spoke. "Dad's at his workshop, where he spends most of his days crafting and creating. He's truly in his element," she continued, her voice steady but laced with tension. "Your mother-in-law went there and saw your father in his work clothes, stained from the glass." She just scoffed. I gripped the phone tighter, bracing myself for what was coming next. "When your father went over to greet her, he apologized for not shaking her hand. His hands were all stained from work, you know." She looked at his hands. "Ellie," made a face, and said something awful about coming to this backwater for nothing. My heart sank further as I listened. "She says she understands now why you turned out the way you did and just left without another word." "Thanks for telling me, Mom. I need to think about what to do." I hung up, feeling a tumult of anger and hurt swirling inside me. It wasn't long before Vivian made her next move. The very next day, she cornered me in the living room, her eyes cold and judgmental. "Ellie, now I see where you get your manners, or should I say, lack thereof. Your father is just an ordinary worker, his hands permanently dirtied. What kind of upbringing, what kind of manners could you possibly teach any children?" I shuddered at her words. They struck me like daggers. But before I could respond, Jack walked in. Instead of defending me, he went straight to his mother, taking her in his arms. "Mom, I'm sorry about all this. Ellie's family, they're just different from us." That was it. The last straw. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Different? Is that your way of saying my family isn't good enough for your high standards?" My voice broke, the hurt too deep. Jack looked at me, his eyes empty. "It's just how things are, Ellie. We come from different worlds." "So that's it, huh?" My voice rose, thick with emotion. "If I'm such a disgrace, why don't we just end this? If I'm so beneath you, let's get a divorce." Vivian's eyes lit up, almost gleefully. "Well, that sounds like a splendid idea." Jack just nodded passively. "Maybe that's for the best." I spent the night in our guest room, tears streaming down my face as Vivian's every word replayed in my mind. Each dismissive glance from Jack, the life I thought we were building, it all felt like a lie. The early morning light filtered through the blinds, casting a soft glow across the room as I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand. It was time to make some difficult but necessary calls. First on my list was my boss, Mr. Jackson, whose kindness had always made the stresses of work bearable. "Mr. Jackson, it's Ellie," I started, my voice shaky. "I'm facing some personal issues and need to take some time off. I can take it unpaid if necessary." "Ellie," he replied quickly, concern evident in his voice. "You're one of our most valuable team members. Take a paid vacation, sort things out, and come back when you're ready. We'll manage here." His generosity brought a lump to my throat. "Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I can't tell you how much this means to me." Next, I dialed my mother, who had always been my anchor in any storm. As soon as she answered, I spilled everything, my words tumbling out in a torrent of emotion. "Mom, it's all falling apart here. I can't do this anymore with Jack and his mom. It's just too much." Her voice was calm and soothing. "Ellie, we've been prepared for this call. Your father and I are on our way. Just pack what you need." As I ended the call, I glanced around the room, my eyes landing on the few personal items I brought into this house, none of which felt like they belonged. I started packing, each item a reminder of the life I thought I'd build with Jack. Vivian appeared at the doorway, her presence like a dark cloud. "Remember, Ellie, only take what you bought with your own money. Don't think about grabbing anything else," she said, her voice cold and accusatory. It wasn't long before I heard the gravel crunch under the tires of an old vehicle. Looking out the window, I saw the familiar beat-up pickup truck that belonged to my parents. Jack and Vivian followed me outside, their expressions a mixture of smugness and curiosity. As my parents' truck pulled up, Jack scoffed loudly. "Sure that old thing will even make it back?" My father stepped out, a quiet strength emanating from him as he faced Jack without a word. He handed over the divorce papers, his eyes steady and unwavering. Jack grabbed the papers and signed them with a smirk, his mother chuckling beside him, glad to be rid of this mess. We arrived at my parents' home, a large, imposing structure that felt more like a sanctuary now. I spent the next few hours unpacking and trying to settle my nerves. The peace of the familiar surroundings slowly calmed me. That evening, as I sat looking out at the garden, my phone rang. It was Vivian. "Ellie, you need to return the ring. It's a family heirloom, not a parting gift." I held the phone away for a moment, taking a deep breath before responding. "Vivian, that ring was given to me as a wedding gift. If you want it, come and get it yourself." The morning light was just beginning to spill over the horizon. When I spotted Jack and his mother, Vivian, from the upstairs window, they stood at the gate, staring up at the house as if they had wandered into a fairy tale. Their expressions of disbelief were almost comical. A smirk crept across my lips as I watched them from behind the curtain. They looked so out of place against the backdrop of my large, meticulously landscaped front yard, their confusion palpable. I turned away from the window, hearing my parents downstairs, and joined them. We shared a knowing glance before stepping outside. Calm and collected, my parents walked past Jack and Vivian without a word, heading straight for the garage. They pretended not to notice the bewildered stares from my estranged husband and his mother. As the garage door swung open, revealing 3 sleek, high-end cars, I could hear Jack's sharp intake of breath. My father chose a gleaming black sedan, and we all climbed in. Just as we were about to pull out of the driveway, Jack finally found his voice. "Ellie, what is all this? This house? These cars?" I stepped out of the car, approaching them with a calm I hadn't felt in months. "This is my family home, Jack. My father owns a glass factory and several commercial properties. This is where I grew up." Vivian's face contorted in confusion. "But your father, he was wearing work clothes. His hands were dirty." I couldn't help but smile at her naivety. "Yes, Vivian, he was launching a new product line. It's a tradition in his company to get involved hands-on. It doesn't mean he's not successful or wealthy." They stood there, stunned, unable to reconcile the image of the hardworking man they'd seen with the opulence surrounding them. At that moment, a group of neighbors approached, their faces bright with smiles. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. We heard about your latest charity event. It's wonderful what you're doing, and you've got our support in the mayoral elections." One of them called out cheerfully. My parents nodded and thanked them, while Jack's face twisted with a mixture of awe and regret, his eyes darting between his mother and me. Vivian looked as though she had swallowed something bitter, her earlier arrogance washed away by the undeniable reality before her. I turned back to the car, giving Jack and Vivian one last look. "Well, I guess you see things a little differently now," I said, not unkindly. Their expressions of shock and realization confirmed that the past, with all its hardships and hardshatches, was finally behind me. But before I could savor the moment, Jack made his move. He shoved his mother aside with such force that she stumbled. "It's all your fault, you know. You pushed her away with your nonsense," he shouted at her, bitterness lacing his words. Turning to me, his demeanor shifted completely. He rushed over, trying to pull me to an embrace, his hands reaching out as if he could erase everything with a simple touch. "Ellie, please listen to me. We were good together, weren't we? I love you. I really do," he pleaded, his voice a desperate whisper. I recoiled from his touch. The warmth we once shared had long been extinguished by his betrayal. "Stop, Jack. Just stop," I said firmly, pushing him away with all the strength I could muster. Quickly, I got into the car, my heart pounding. Without a word, my father pressed the remote control, and the garage doors began to close behind us. Jack and Vivian stood there, calling out, their voices a blend of desperation and disbelief. "Ellie, please forgive us. We didn't mean any of it," Jack yelled, his voice cracking. Vivian, scrambling for the dignity she'd lost, joined in. "Ellie, my dear, I was wrong. Please." As we drove away, the finality of the moment weighed heavily on me, but a part of me craved closure, a definitive end to this chapter of my life. When we reached the end of the driveway, I asked my father to stop the car. Thinking this was his chance, Jack ran up to us, his face lit with hope, while his mother trailed behind, her earlier elegance replaced by desperation. Without a word, I rolled down the window, pulled off my wedding ring, and held it out. Jack's eyes widened as he realized what was about to happen. "This is where it ends, Jack," I said, my voice steady. With that, I threw the ring out of the window. It glittered briefly in the morning sun before landing on the soft grass beside the road. Vivian, ever the opportunist, rushed to where the ring had fallen, her hands scrambling through the grass. I rolled up the window, shutting out their pleas and the painful past they represented. "Let's go, Dad," I said quietly. 2 weeks later, I was back in the city, settled into a new apartment that felt more like home than I had in a long time. I returned to work, where Mr. Jackson welcomed me with open arms and a gentle understanding that eased my transition back into routine. Jack made several attempts to contact me, each one more desperate than the last. He claimed to have cut ties with his mother, begging for another chance, but some things, once broken, can't be mended. I told him it was over for good this time and blocked his number. No more words were needed. I wasn't really searching for love at 28. I was too focused on my career as a rising star at my finance firm. Spreadsheets were my love language, and my cubicle felt more like home than any bar or dating app could ever offer. Then came Sarah's rooftop party. Sarah, my coworker and best friend, had a talent for pulling me out of my comfort zone. This time, the crowd was a mix of artists, musicians, and a few familiar faces from the office. That's when I spotted him. He was engaged in a playful debate with another guy about the best way to restore a brick building. Tall and lean, with kind eyes and tousled dark brown hair, he wore a weathered leather jacket over a faded band t-shirt, definitely the opposite of my usual buttoned-up crowd. Yet something about him intrigued me. "So, you think slapping a fresh coat of paint on history is a good idea?" he asked, a playful smile on his lips. The other guy, a stocky dude with a shaved head, rolled his eyes. "Hey, it preserves the structure, right?" "Yeah, but it erases the character," he countered. "The cracks and the wear, that's what tells the story." I found myself inching closer, drawn to their easy banter. Just then, Sarah appeared beside me, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Amelia, this is Mark," she said, nudging me forward. "Mark, this is Amelia, the spreadsheet wizard I told you about." Mark's smile widened as he took me in. "Spreadsheet wizard, huh? Sounds impressive." "It pays the bills," I replied, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks, "but I can hold my own in a conversation that doesn't involve amortization schedules." I winked at Sarah, who chuckled. "Challenge accepted," Mark said, his voice warm and inviting. "So, Amelia the spreadsheet wizard, what do you think about preserving history?" We ended up talking for hours about everything and nothing. He was an architect passionate about breathing new life into old buildings, while I shared stories of my crazy hours at the firm and the thrill of closing a big deal. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and before we knew it, we found ourselves standing by the railing overlooking the glittering city skyline. The cool air sent goosebumps prickling down my arms. "This is fun," I admitted, surprised by the slight tremor in my voice. "Yeah," he agreed, his gaze fixed on the city below. "I wouldn't mind doing this again sometime." "Me neither," I blurted out, unable to overthink it. Our first official date was a dinner with Mark's parents, Martha and Arthur, at a fancy restaurant. The conversation flowed easily at first, revolving around wedding plans, the beautiful old library venue I had booked, and the expensive organic caterer I was stressing over. Then, things took a strange turn. Mid-bite of her lobster bisque, pronounced with a peculiar accent, Martha suddenly fixed me with a steely gaze. "So, Amelia," she said, dabbing her lips with a napkin, "Mark tells me you work in finance." Yes, I'm a financial analyst at a large firm downtown, I replied, unsure where this was heading. Analyst, huh? Sounds important. Arthur chimed in, his booming voice filling the table. Mark, who had been mostly quiet, cleared his throat. Dad, come on, that's not what we're talking about. Just making conversation, son, Arthur said, waving his hand dismissively before turning back to me. So, Amelia, you mentioned a big name firm. I told him the name, a global player in the financial world. A satisfied smile spread across Martha's face. Excellent, she declared. And you say you do well for yourself? Investments, stocks, that kind of thing. Yes, I manage a portfolio, I replied, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. This felt more like an interrogation than a casual dinner with my future in-laws. A portfolio, huh? Martha leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. How much are we talking about here, dear? My jaw dropped. This was outrageous. No one asked questions like that. I glanced at Mark, hoping he'd intervene, but he just fiddled with the breadbasket, avoiding my gaze. That's really personal information, Mrs. Miller, I said, forcing a smile. Oh, come on, honey, Martha huffed. We're practically family now, isn't that right, Mark? Mark mumbled something non-committal, his cheeks flushed. I decided to take control of the situation. Look, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, money isn't everything. Mark and I love each other, and that's what matters most. Love is great, sweetheart, Arthur chimed in again, but let's face it, love doesn't pay the bills. I took a deep breath. This dinner was turning into a disaster. Maybe we should stick to talking about the wedding, I suggested, desperately trying to redirect the conversation. The following morning, I called my grandma right after I got off the phone with her. As I recounted the awkward dinner with Mark's parents, a wave of doubt washed over me. Her words about greedy and selfish people echoed in my mind, but I dismissed them. Grandma could be a bit old-fashioned at times. Sure, Martha and Arthur were blunt, but they genuinely seemed happy for us. Maybe they just struggled to express their emotions. Fast forward a few months, and the wedding planning was in full swing. Every detail, from the venue to the flowers, felt like pulling teeth. Whenever money came up, Mark would give a sheepish shrug and say, "Work's been a bit tight lately." His parents, bless their hearts, kept offering suggestions, cheaper venues outside the city, a family friend who could cater at a discount, which really meant they'd barter for vegetables from their neighbor's garden. In the end, I found myself footing most of the bill. Mark, ever the charmer, would say things like, "You're amazing, honey," handling everything like a champ. But his lack of financial contributions started to grate on me. Finally, the big day arrived. It was beautiful. The weather cooperated, the food was delicious, and most importantly, Mark and I said, "I do." The only sour note was Grandma. After the ceremony, she pulled me aside, her wrinkled face etched with concern. "Amelia, honey," she said, her voice low, "be careful with those in-laws of yours. They don't have your best interests at heart." I rolled my eyes. Here we go again. "Grandma, they're just excited. They love Mark. They love me. Everything's fine." The honeymoon phase barely lasted a week before the first major in-law incident occurred. It was a lazy Sunday morning, and Mark and I were still luxuriating in bed when a loud thump from downstairs shattered the peaceful silence. We exchanged confused glances, and Mark mumbled, "Probably the mail." But that thump was soon followed by a cacophony of rustling paper and muffled exclamations. Throwing on our robes, we hurried downstairs, only to find a scene that looked straight out of a horror movie. Well, a horror movie filled with floral wrapping paper and gaudy gift bags. Martha and Arthur were sprawled on the living room floor, surrounded by our wedding presents like vultures picking over a carcass. They were tearing into boxes, oohing and ahhing over some items while dismissively tossing others aside. "What in the world is going on here?" I demanded, disbelief lacing my voice. Martha, mid-unwrapping, looked up and flashed a megawatt smile. "Amelia, darling, just admiring your lovely wedding gifts." "Admiring," I sputtered. "It looks more like you're ransacking the place." Arthur held up a crystal vase, squinting at it. "Relax, sweetheart. Just sorting things out. Can't have all this clutter lying around, can we?" "Clutter," I exclaimed, incredulous. These were gifts chosen with love by our friends and family. Before I could voice my outrage, Mark interjected, "Maybe they should just leave the presents unopened, right?" His tone was mild, but the message was clear. I chimed in, Rel wasn't completely oblivious. Martha scoffed. Don't be silly, honey. It's rude not to open presents. Besides, she added, her eyes gleaming, we might find something truly special in here. Special for them, I thought bitterly, watching in growing frustration as they picked through our wedding gifts, setting aside anything that caught their fancy. A silver picture frame, a set of engraved wine glasses, a fancy cheese board. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. These are our wedding gifts, I said, my voice firm. Not yours to take. Look, honey, Martha replied, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. We just saw some things that would look lovely in our new house. You know, the one we're decorating. They were redecorating with our wedding gifts. The anger bubbled up inside me, threatening to spill over. What about the gift you got us? I asked, my voice tight. Martha paused, her hand hovering over a box wrapped in fancy floral paper. She rummaged through the pile and finally pulled out a small, oddly shaped package. With a flourish, she handed it to me. I unwrapped it slowly, my heart sinking with each layer of tissue paper. Inside was a cheap glass statuette, the kind you find at a discount store, adorned with garish plastic flowers. My stomach churned. This was their idea of a wedding gift. Maybe Grandma was right. Maybe I had married into a nightmare. The wedding gift incident was just the tip of the iceberg. Martha's shopping sprees became a regular occurrence. She'd call, all chipper, asking me to join her for a girls' day out. But it was really just code for me being her unpaid personal shopper. We'd browse stores, and inevitably, Martha would find something she absolutely had to have. At checkout, she'd do this weird shuffle with her purchases and mine, muttering about forgetting her wallet and how inconvenient it was to have separate bags. By the time the cashier figured it all out, I'd be stuck paying for both our stuff. Arthur wasn't much better. Weekends were his prime visiting time. He'd waltz in unannounced, plop himself down on the couch, and proceed to spend the entire day glued to the TV, inhaling whatever snacks I had on hand. When I finally mustered the courage to ask him why he spent so much time at our place, he looked at me with a straight face and said, "Saves money on groceries and electricity, doesn't it?" The audacity of the man. Did he think we were running a charity? Mark, ever the peacekeeper, just rolled his eyes and muttered something about Dad needing some company. But the birthday dinner was the final straw. I decided to treat myself to a nice night out at a fancy restaurant to celebrate another year older and hopefully wiser. Naturally, I invited Martha and Arthur. A big mistake. The menu was a bewildering array of French names and unfamiliar ingredients, but undeterred, Martha and Arthur ordered the most expensive dishes, pronouncing them with a confidence that masked their complete lack of knowledge. Halfway through the meal, Martha pushed her plate away, declaring that the escargot was too slimy. Arthur, meanwhile, choked on a mouthful of bouillabaisse, spraying saffron broth across the table. The entire evening was a disaster. By the time the bill arrived, my blood pressure was through the roof. The cost of that meal could have fed us for a month. And guess who offered to chip in? Nope, not Mark. He just sat there, oblivious, while I choked out a strained thank you to the waiter and reached for my credit card. Back home, fuming and frustrated, I finally confronted Mark. "How can you just let your parents walk all over you like that?" I demanded. "Come on, babe," he said dismissively. "It's not a big deal. They're just, like that." "Like what?" "Selfish and entitled." I shot back. "Mark, this isn't okay." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I love you, but you've got to pick your battles. My parents are, well, my parents. They're not going to change." Maybe he was right. Perhaps I had been naive, hoping to change them, to somehow mold them into the in-laws I'd always dreamed of. But the reality was staring me in the face. Martha and Arthur were who they were, and that wasn't going to change. The birthday dinner debacle was a turning point, but it wasn't the end. Their gift-giving strategy became painfully clear. Shower us with cheap, impersonal trinkets on holidays and expect extravagant presents in return. A framed picture of a lighthouse for Christmas. Try a top-of-the-line espresso machine for Mother's Day. According to Martha's logic, any hint at the unbalanced value of gifts resulted in a lecture about family and not keeping score. My grandma, bless her soul, wouldn't dream of asking for anything. Every time I'd inquire about a holiday gift, she'd brush it off with, "Honey, I have everything I need. Just come visit. That's all that matters." Meanwhile, Martha and Arthur treated gift-giving like a competitive sport. They show up unannounced, a triumphant glint in their eyes, brandishing their latest treasures. a chipped ceramic fruit bowl for Christmas, a set of mismatched oven mitts decorated with faded cartoon cats for Valentine's Day. Each offering felt like a slap in the face. The final insult came on Thanksgiving that year. I had opted for a quiet night in just Mark and me. Maybe we'd order some takeout and watch a movie. But of course, Martha and Arthur had other plans. They barged in, laden with shopping bags, their faces plastered with self-satisfied grins. "Happy Thanksgiving, sweetie," Martha trilled, thrusting a brightly wrapped package at me. I unwrapped it, my stomach sinking. Inside was a gaudy scarf, the kind you might find at a gas station gift shop. The flowers were fake and plastic, and the fabric felt like sandpaper against my skin. "It's perfect, isn't it?" Martha beamed. "It matches your new coat." "Perfectly." I forced a smile. The coat in question was a vintage find I'd scored at a thrift store. The scarf, however, clashed spectacularly. "Thanks, Martha," I mumbled, trying to mask my disappointment. Meanwhile, Arthur was holding up a small box. "And for you, son," he declared, "a little something to help you unwind after a long day at work." Mark's eyes lit up as he eagerly tore into the box, revealing a pack of cheap drugstore cigars, the kind that smelled like dirty ashtrays and regret. "Thanks, Dad," Mark said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. That was it, the final straw. Here I was, staring at a birthday gift that insulted my taste and a husband who seemed more excited about a pack of drugstore cigars than his wife's well-being. Anger simmered inside me, threatening to boil over. But instead of exploding, I did something completely unexpected. I took a deep breath, forced a smile, and thanked them for the lovely gifts. A glimmer of hope arrived with my work performance. I landed a coveted quarterly award and a hefty bonus that practically screamed, "Celebrate." Venice, with its romantic canals and rich history, had always been a dream destination. Knowing I spoke fluent Italian sealed the deal. This trip would be a chance to reconnect with Mark and escape the suffocating grip of his parents for a while. Except news travels fast, especially bad news to eager ears. Upon learning of our travel plans, Martha and Arthur descended like hungry vultures. "Venice, huh?" Martha said, her eyes gleaming with a disturbing avarice. "Sounds delightful. Always wanted to see those gondolas up close." "Actually," I interjected, trying to be polite, "this trip is just for Mark and me. A little romantic getaway." Arthur scoffed. "Come on, Amelia, don't be selfish. We've never been to Europe, let alone Venice. Think of the pictures." Pictures. This wasn't about a photo op with gondolas. It was about escaping their smothering presence. "I'm sorry, but," I said, my voice firm, "this is a trip for two." My polite refusal triggered a meltdown of epic proportions. They called me selfish and greedy, accusing me of trying to alienate Mark from his family. The worst part, Mark, ever the peacekeeper, didn't stand up for me. Instead, he mumbled something about maybe they could come along and that it wouldn't be that bad. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a trip anymore. This was about boundaries, respect, and whether our marriage could survive his parents' constant intrusion. I looked at Mark, my voice laced with ice. "Absolutely not. This is our trip, and they are not invited." The fight that followed was brutal. Harsh words were exchanged, and accusations flew like daggers. By the end, a heavy silence settled between us. We retreated to opposite ends of the apartment, a cold war brewing in our once happy home. Days blurred together, and the silence in the apartment was a constant reminder of the chasm that had opened between Mark and me. I didn't call his parents. The mere thought of their entitled whining made my stomach churn. Mark remained in his self-imposed exile. The only communication between us was a muted good morning in the kitchen each day. Then, on a random Saturday morning, I woke up to an empty apartment and a sinking feeling in my gut. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, the notification sound grating on my nerves. Glancing at it, my blood ran cold. Airline ticket confirmations, 3 of them to Venice, purchased from my account. Panic clawed at my throat. No, it couldn't be. But as I scrolled through the confirmations, the sickening truth settled in. Mark, with the audacity of a seasoned thief, had used my trusted access to our bank account to book not only his own ticket to Venice but 2 more for his precious parents. Hotel reservations were also courtesy of my hard-earned money. It confirmed my suspicions. He'd gone behind my back, completely disregarding my feelings, and booked a vacation for himself and his leech-like family with my money. The anger, hot and furious, burned away any remaining affection I had for him. My fingers flew across the screen, canceling the return flights and hotel rooms. Next, with steely resolve, I revoked Mark's access to my bank account. It was a small act of defiance in the face of their colossal selfishness. A few hours later, my phone erupted with a call. Mark's name flashed on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. The notification arrived a moment later, his voice laced with panic and fury. "Amelia, where the hell are you? We're supposed to be checking into the hotel. What did you do with the tickets?" I deleted the message without listening. Then came a barrage of texts from both Mark and Martha, a mix of demands, accusations, and veiled threats. Mark's final message sent a dark chill rippling through me. "If you don't give me back access to the account and get us on that damn plane, Amelia, we're done. Consider this your divorce notice." With newfound clarity, I started making my own plans. I contacted a lawyer, and with each step toward independence, the weight lifted from my shoulders. Mark's divorce notice might as well have been a gift. I didn't wait for him to waltz back in with his tail between his legs. Packing was cathartic. Clothes went into suitcases, knickknacks into boxes. But the gifts from Martha and Arthur, those gaudy trinkets and mismatched sets, I left untouched. I lined them up on the living room floor, a Gittish monument to their selfishness. A final act of defiance before I slammed the door shut on that chapter of my life. Grandma's house, with its familiar scent of cinnamon rolls and worn furniture, felt like a warm hug. Tears streamed down my face as I recounted the entire ordeal, the hurt and anger spilling out like a dam breaking. Grandma listened patiently, a sad smile on her lips. "I told you, honey," she said softly, her voice laced with a hint of "I told you so," but mostly concern. "Sometimes you've got to learn things the hard way." "I know," I said, newfound determination settling in my voice. "Maybe this is a good thing. Now I know what to look for, what to avoid." A few days later, a knock on the door shattered the peace of the afternoon. My heart lurched, but before I could react, Grandma ushered me toward the back room. Peeking through the curtain, I saw Mark standing there, looking lost and dejected. "Amelia, please," he pleaded, his voice thick with desperation. "Let me explain." Grandma opened the door a crack, her expression unreadable. Mark launched into a groveling apology, spewing words about realizing his mistakes and trying to distance himself from his parents. The anger that had been simmering inside me bubbled over. I barged into the hallway, a cold fury in my eyes. "Distance himself," I scoffed. "Mark, you were about to spend my money taking them on a vacation. This isn't about you suddenly seeing the light. This is about you being comfortable. Comfortable because I paid the bills and bought your parents presents." He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. "No, Mark, this is over. I don't want to build a life with someone who prioritizes comfort over respect or someone who lets his parents walk all over him and his wife. I deserve better than that." Mark's face crumpled, but this time I felt no pity. The door shut with a finality that echoed in the silence that followed. Maybe Grandma was right. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something new, something better. A life free of entitled in-laws, a life filled with respect, and maybe someday, love that wasn't selfish or convenient.